Oh, it's the good people with Eric and Hannah. It is July 9th, 2022, 10:40 a.m. Pacific time, 1:40 a.m. or 1:40 p.m. 1:40 p.m. Eastern time. See how I get screwed up with all of that? So I'm going to take a little bet. We're going to take a little bet here before I switch screens. How much you want to bet my camera's frozen again?
I bet I know money because I know it's going to be frozen.
All right. Sure. All right. Let's bet money. We'll send Hannah a Postmates. Let's see here. And here we go. Oh, look at that. Hannah gets a Postmates. Let's go ahead and
it's frozen.
That.
It's frozen, so you don't.
Oh, you were going to gamble that it wasn't frozen? We're fixing that today. Like, we're fixing that situation today. We're going to take a
Eric
little trip.
got pissed off enough to where he's like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, you ever get in one of those situations where you're just like, I'm done? I'm not fixing this anymore. I'm tired of half-assing it. I'm going to fix it. And if it costs me money, well, then damn well it costs me money.
That's what I do. Dustin's the kind of person, though, that'll be like, I'm going to fix this and spend like 4 hours because I refuse to buy anything else.
It's like your car. You ever give up like on your car where you're like, I've done everything I possibly can. And then you're like, screw it. I'll take it to the mechanic. Like, you ever do that?
I just take it to the mechanic because I know nothing about cars.
You're a smart one. If you have a good mechanic and a trustworthy mechanic, there is nothing wrong with that method. So, Hannah, how have you been?
I've been good. I've been busy. I was unable to make the last episode, although that was the gaming podcast.
Yeah.
I got sick again. Dustin ended up getting COVID. I don't know if you had ended up mentioning that last episode, but he got COVID, but he's all good. It did hit him hard though. But surprisingly, I never got it. I ended up getting a cold, which is why I wasn't at the last episode, but I never got COVID. I don't know why.
Isn't it weird how like you go and you do this, like you, because Pal got it too. My girlfriend got COVID and I was directly in mouth-to-mouth contact with her like hours before that, and it didn't happen to me. Like I
think you said you had kissed Pal goodbye like that day, or like the night before, and like that for me, I kissed Dustin goodbye that morning, and then it was later that evening he had tested positive for COVID, but I never ended up getting it. I was waiting. I was like, my luck's run out. Like this is
right, and it's just like, oh damn, here we go. And then like I was at my mom's house, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go home. I know it's unexpected. I'm gonna go home. She's like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, but Pal just got COVID. So like now I have to leave and go home and, you know, secure myself. And then it creates a chain. It's like, okay, now mom, you can't go see grandma. Like you have to stay home and all that kind of stuff for the next, 10, 12 days, whatever it is. So like it creates this chain of events. And then my brother, like, you tell your brother, okay, be careful, da, 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 da. But like we're pretty good around my family's house. I still tend to stay away from my mom, like sit away from her. And if I am really close with her, like in a car or whatever, then we'll wear a mask in the car. And I don't know if like, but like LA's kind of ramping up a little bit again. We're on track to be like indoor mask again by the end of July. Yeah. So like I've been starting to like wear mask and stuff again.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think we had like an uptick at some point, and I think Dustin fell into that like, we started to get it again, and then I don't even know. But I'm just shocked that I haven't got it because like I had picked up my sister from school the day that she was sick, thinking that it was just a cold, and it ended up being COVID. And I was like, that's it. But I didn't get it. Not my family didn't get it. And then with Dustin, I'm like, it's over. And nope. So, and we've been like well past like the 10 days, like the 14 days that you're supposed to kind of keep an eye out. So I haven't had any issues.
Yeah,
so.
It blows my mind. And then I get worried because like I get similar symptoms, but like for me, it's allergies.
Yeah, you get those nasty allergies where you can't like. I've heard Eric when he's had like the terrible allergies.
Your whole wedding, I had them.
But the thing is, you didn't sound too bad to me. So I don't know if you were just like on
Dayquil, like all
Dayquil
day.
Or something.
That stuff was like IV drip fed into me, like that whole trip.
Which that surprises me because I feel like Florida allergies aren't something that are really as bad as like. Well, like so when I go up north to Pennsylvania or like Virginia to like visit family or friends, my allergies kick up bad because they got something in the trees over there that's just like. They have foliage out there.
Like you think about it too, like your weather, you're accustomed to your weather.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not accustomed to massive humidity like you guys are, because we don't get that really in California. We have humid days, but like it's not a constant humidity. And then like
Mm-hmm.
you guys get crazy winds like on a regular basis that
Yeah,
just
like the
kick
beach
stuff up
ones.
in the air.
Yeah.
And then,
We do
you
get some pollen though from like the mango
yeah,
trees and
and then
stuff,
you
and that
have like
messes me up.
weird like pollen from mango tree. We don't have very many mango trees in California,
Yeah.
like we have orange orchards and stuff, but like you guys have mangoes and stuff, like, and you get stuff that my body's not accustomed to, and then it freaks out and it's like,
Right.
oh god, allergies, blah blah blah, sneeze sneeze. Zena's
No.
hanging out in the chat with us today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey Zenith, hope you're doing well. But yeah, Eric, when he has his bad allergies, like it sounds like you have like a full blown like
Yeah,
cold
but like I can
flu.
function.
Like,
I can
ugh.
function. It's just awful. I'm like, oh. Sometimes there's times where like I call out like of work because it's so bad. Like I'm just
Probably
constantly sneezing and
because
like,
your eyes get all puffy too, right? Like you just can't even like.
funny enough, this is the first year of allergies where my
Mhm.
eyes were itching and watering.
Oh, so you've never had that before?
I
It's just been
always
as of
get the
recent.
congestion and the sore throat and the coughs and all that stuff, but I never got the eyes until this year, and it was brutal. I'm like, ugh. But I got to go to my doctor, and I got to go. Actually, I have to find a doctor. My doctor retired. So like
No.
I have to find a new doctor, and I have to go get like a refill of the Flonase that you snort into your nose, like
I have some in my closet.
get my fix. Uh, there's a wedding going, and it did it again. Ooh.
Oh, did it freeze again?
It's
Oh, yeah,
getting
there you
okay. So
go.
if you're watching us on twitch.tv, or if you watch the YouTube VOD of this later, you're going to notice like my camera keeps freezing on me. I'm well aware of it, and I'm going to fix the situation today. It's been happening for the past couple podcasts, so we're gonna get that issue resolved today. We're just gonna replace the part and just call it a day. But so other than that, you've been looking at this Final Fantasy 14 billboard.
Yes, I've been wanting to talk about it so badly. Like I have to talk about this because I am curious on what because for anyone that is listening the first time, I'm not on social media, so like I'm not seeing what the general response is from the
Yeah.
community. And I'm a Final Fantasy 14 player, so I don't necessarily know what people are saying, whether it's positive. I've heard it's been like conflicted, but I can tell you like my thoughts on it. But for the sake of it, like I guess we can tell the people like you were the one that brought it to my attention.
So if you refer to episode 24, I believe it is, the episode titled The Club Scene, Hannah was been getting into some Final Fantasy 14. Well, let me rewind a little bit real quick here. If you do not know, Final Fantasy 14 is an online multiplayer, massively multi-online playing game. It's very similar to World of Warcraft. If you've heard the references to World of Warcraft, you can think of Final Fantasy 14 in a very similar environment on broad strokes. It's just a bunch of people all over the world. They get into this server and they all play this game and they collect berries and nuts and all this weird stuff. And then when they get powerful enough, they can go to clubs. That's what I've learned about this game so far. So Hannah has been addicted to this club scene where she's been hanging out in these Final Fantasy clubs with DJs on Twitch, streaming to virtual like parties, and it's wild to me. So anyway, I sent Hannah this tweet where somebody has put up a billboard in the city, like an actual billboard they paid for, advertising some Final Fantasy 14 beach party or something like that, if I'm getting this correct.
Was it 2 billboards? Like one, or let's see.
It was one billboard too many. Like,
let's see. 2 billboards in Austin and Houston, Texas. So this is in Texas.
Major metropolitan city.
And so at first I was like, no way, I'm like, for real, like this is cool. And then it started to kind of sit in a little bit, and I started to kind of like think. I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea.
So are you afraid of are you getting a little gatekeepy and afraid that your whole little party scene's gonna...
So that's what I was telling Dustin that. I'm like, so there are 2 issues that I kind of have with this. And I don't know if anyone else has the same issue or whatever, but like I'm curious if anyone feels a different way, like, to mention it in the chat. But like on the first level, it comes from like a role play level, right? I'm not like a role player on Final Fantasy. because like for me, like I don't know the lore or anything. I just do it to kind of hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, oh, this little club scene that we're all hanging out in Discord chatting. The music's playing in the background, like we're just goofing off. It's like I don't take it like terribly seriously, right? But I am a role player on WoW, so I have like as a role player on World of Warcraft, I have like timelines written, I have like biographies written for my characters. I've put a lot of time and like creativity into writing stories, right? And so I can understand like maybe the hesitation some players might have on Final Fantasy to suddenly opening up this world to the general public, right? And the reason I say that is because role players on any level, whether Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft, are never taken seriously. It's always a joke to people. You know what I mean? And my worry is that if you open it up to the masses, you're just going to get like an influx of trolls that are coming in to kind of destroy or ruin these spaces that people are trying to create. So, I mean, I don't even know if that's the case. I haven't even checked up on if there's been a flooding of the server. I haven't seen if people have been going to these clubs. Like, I haven't played Final Fantasy like much in the last couple weeks. Ever since like I had my cold, like I've just been resting. But I was curious if they would get the influx of trolls, like people that think this is a joke, that are just gonna go in and kind of like
hassle. This
ruin
happened.
it.
This happened, like this is a whole completely different scenario, but like when pop punk and stuff got really popular in the 2000s and got on radio and MTV and everything, there was an influx of people in the clubs that didn't understand the etiquette of the pit or anything, and they would go in, get drunk and start fights and all that kind of stuff. Like it does happen. It kind of because you know it's a whole shift of people coming in that aren't accustomed to it. So that happened a while for about the past decade, you know, for a decade or so, and then it kind of leveled off when people moved on to different music in the popular realm. But
Right.
Speaking of music, so like I understand your sentiments before I move on here, your sentiments about, you know, it's understandable how like people will just come and mess up your game and like kind of take away from the experience. And it is kind of your own little secret little club and, you know, your own little party scene, you know. But honestly, I think it's one of those things where it's like people will move on from it when it's not on the newspapers and stuff anymore. So like
right. It's just like you almost have to just deal with the influx of like trolling or and I don't want to gatekeep something in the fact that like you can't like some people might be like, whoa, this was never an aspect of the game that I was aware about. That's how Dustin and I stumbled in on it. We had no idea that this was a thing, and I think Dustin ended up finding it on Twitch.
Isn't it fun? And like when you find something and you're like, this is amazing, and then you go back and like, you go back and you go back.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's a full club scene out there, and it's fun to just sit there and take pictures of like your character and like people watch. And so you just don't want to because and also too another thing is where these clubs are kind of hosted, they're hosted in like plots of land that people buy
in the
using
game
like gil. And so Square or Final Fantasy doesn't have a system where you can kick people off your plot or off out of the house.
I bet you
so
they'll
if
fix
you
it.
go so if you go in there and you let's say are just spamming, or if you're just acting like crazy, like inappropriate, because they do have like club rules, like they like the people tend to run this like on a role play side as like a legitimate club,
right?
So if you come in and trolling, there's no way that they can kick you out. There's no kind of way to do that, and so that's kind of like another issue there. It's like people are going to come in and troll and you can't really get rid of them.
They're going to fix that situation. I think as this trend thing gets bigger and bigger, they'll be, I'm sure people have already like most of these games you can go on like online to their support portals or whatever and make like recommendations. Like you can make recommendations like for the updates, like Discord, the software we use to record this. Like you can go in there and make suggestions, be like, hey, I'd like to be able to like have individual volumes or individual recording for everybody. And like you can make suggestions for the software to improve it. And I'm sure someone's already mentioned that. We're getting some familiar faces from Good Friends, Good Games. I just want to welcome those of you that have not seen this show. This is me and Hannah. We kind of do the backside, like the behind the scenes kind of life topics and stuff and discussion. We talk about more like outside of video game stuff here, but it all kind of intertwines. So it's a little bit of a different show. So if you are checking that out, welcome. If you are listening from the Good Friends, Good Game side of things, if that's your thing and you're checking in here, we welcome you. again, we're more of a behind the scenes, like living life type of stuff outside of streaming and games and all that kind of stuff. A little bit of a different content, but we welcome you. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you follow both shows. If you are here and you want to follow, the channel on Twitch, please do so. We're getting close to that 50 follower mark for the affiliate. We would like to hit the affiliate so we can get the emotes and stuff up for you guys and get that stuff started working out. But welcome, everyone, welcome. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, welcome as well. We appreciate you as always. So you talk about gatekeeping a little bit. Mm-hmm. I finished Stranger Things season 4. And I think this is probably one of the most brilliantly well done seasons. Story-wise, it's got some loopholes. But I think from what they've done with the show and what they've taken it to in terms of like technology and like just creative and everything, it's probably the best one. Yeah. Lots of like 80s horror inspiration behind it in terms of jump scares and the use of sounds and stuff to like create this creepy vibe. But spoiler alert. 1, 2, if you don't want to hear about the end of it right now, go ahead and turn your volume down for the next 30 seconds or so. Turn off the stream or switch for 30-40 seconds. Spoiler alert now. The ending episode, the final episode, there's a character named Eddie who is a heavy metal Dungeons and Dragons playing high school nerd. Which, looking at everything, he's become one of the most beloved characters because he is a character that has not been touched on the show yet. Because every high school and every generation has those people. They're like these, they're like either the weird punk kids that are into like Lord of the Rings and play Dungeons and Dragons, or these metal guys that do the same thing. Like it's a very specific group of people and every school has them. And this kid has become the forefront of the show and one of the most popular characters the show has had. So, again, spoiler alert, before he meets his unfortunate demise, they have this mission where music like detracts the demons and the bad guys, right? So his homage in this thing is that he gets on top of an RV with Dustin, the little curly haired kid, and he cranks up his amp and he plays Metallica's Master of Puppets. And it has become one of these pivotal things this show. It's basically, not only has it raised the... Well, let me go back a little bit too. There's two things that happen. The main theme that was used throughout the song is a song called by Kate Bush. It's called "Running Up the Hill," which is used throughout the song or throughout the show as kind of like this recurring theme. It's like almost like the theme song for the show this season, right? This is a song from the 80s. It shot her up to like number 35 listened on Spotify. So she became like the 35th most listened artist on Spotify. That shot her up just on Stranger Things. And now Metallica is like in the top, I think it's almost in the top 10 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
On Spotify because of Master of Puppets. So what does this mean? So now we have the generation of people that grew up with that stuff, and the gatekeepers are coming out saying like, well, now my heavy metal love is being ruined by all these new kids that are going to... Same sentiment you're feeling. It's going to be trolled. People aren't going to appreciate it and stuff. I'm on the opposite end. Young Eric would have felt the same way. I've been like, oh, great. There goes my Metallica party, right? But now that I'm older and I look at these things, I'm so damn excited to watch. I've been already smiling because I'm watching all these TikToks. And there's all these young kids, the young Dustins of Eddies of the world that are picking up guitars and they are trying this song for the first time. This song is incredibly hard. It sounds simple. And Metallica, when they play it, it looks simple, but it's incredibly difficult. It takes a lot of hard work on the wrist because it's constant downstrokes and it's incredibly fast. It's clack, 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 clack. Like literally just, if you have a metronome, it's tick, 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 tick. It's hard. It's fast. And it takes a lot of time to build up strength to do it. And not everyone can do it. There's some guitar players that can't do it. But I'm just excited watching all these young kids pick up guitars and try and do this. So it's so much fun and it's so fun to watch. And I'm so passionate about it because this is one of those moments that's going to pick kids to pick up guitars, and guitars are going to become a big thing in music again.
Right.
Kids are going to go start rock bands in their garage. They're going to go learn Metallica songs, etc. There's like very few moments, like you think about it, like Nirvana sold guitars. You know, we'll go all the way back to the 60s. Jimi Hendrix sold guitars. You know, Nirvana sold guitars. When Green Day and Blink-182 got popular, they sold guitars. And it got kids to pick up guitars and start learning and start playing. And it had kids creating music again.
You're seeing like this revival of the 80s. And I
I'm
think
in
it was
love with
starting to
it.
happen. I think it was starting to happen before the Stranger Things.
It was the Back to the
season came
Future
out.
vibes and stuff were
Yeah,
starting
like
to get
it was
popular
slowly starting to kind of like those synth sounds and like, and I think Stranger Things just kind of like kicked it up a notch.
Right. It's
So,
a
but
beautiful
I'm glad
thing.
you're excited though. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and I want to say too, like as far as my gatekeeping, I love having other
Right.
people join Final Fantasy. Mine is more of a, I'm just scared of people with bad intent.
Right.
Like not the people with the good intent. I'm scared of the people that think it's a joke, you know, and they're trying to come into the game.
Yeah.
So,
and it's like, well, my terms of gatekeeping that I'm experiencing is like you're getting these old timers like, this is ridiculous. This isn't real music. Da 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 da. You know, like go listen to the Rolling Stones. Da, 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 da. I got news for you. Those Rolling Stone songs are a lot easier to play than that Metallica riff in terms of like strength and technique and everything. Like there's a big difference. And that's the thing. People that don't know will rattle their mouth and not realize like how hard something actually is to do. But I'm so excited to watch all these kids doing it. I've seen kids on drums. Like kids have been doing it on drums. Metallica did a duo with it already. Like they did
already.
They did the duet with the scene with Netflix. So it's a thing. It's becoming a thing, and Metallica is going to shoot up the charts again. And we got to give it time. Because someone was saying in Reddit, like, oh, why hasn't Metallica taken off like Kate Bush have? And I was like, give it time. These kids need time to learn the song. It takes a couple weeks. Yeah. You know, you'll start seeing it. And I'm already seeing it, and I'm excited for it. And like those of you, and this is just for you if you're listening to this, if you're one of those young Dustins and Eddies of the world trying to learn it, keep at it. Your wrist will get there. Just keep going. Don't give up. Just keep going. It'll be so worth it in the end when you can post it and do it.
Can I ask a question back about our first topic, the Final Fantasy topic? What has have you seen the general consensus on people's opinion on the matter? Because I don't know what the opinion.
I saw it and I haven't gotten a real consensus on it yet. I think we'll touch on it a little bit more when we do Good Friends, Good Games next week. We'll touch on it a little bit more.
Okay.
But we'll definitely tap on it, and I'll look into it a little bit more.
Okay.
And also, I don't really play the game. I've given my opinions on the.
Well, because I have another like point to bring up about it, but we can wait until like the next games episode.
Right. I'll get the consensus for you, and we'll talk about it on Good Friends, Good Games when we come back next week. So, got a little bit of a thing here. So, if you didn't listen on Good Friends and Good Games, Hannah turned 30. So this is her Good People with Erik and Hannah happy birthday 30. So you're now 30 years old.
I've been 30 for a month now. Like it's July 9th. I turned 30 June 9th.
How does 30 feel?
What's interesting is I forget that I'm 30. So I don't know why. Like I like weirdly in my head I still feel like I'm in I'm in my late 20s. Like it hasn't like fully clicked that like the other day I was looking up some actor. I forget who, and it said that they were like 27, and I was like, oh, so they're like close to my age, and I'm like, wait, I'm not in my 20, like I'm 30, like I'm not 29, like I'm not 28.
Was it Tom Holland?
No, I actually don't know how old Tom Holland is. I know he's younger than me though.
Fairly young, like, but
well, he's probably like 25 or something. But like, because I'm getting to that point now where I'm seeing like, because I look very young. I have like a baby face.
Yeah.
And so I'm finding that like when I look up actors or whatever that I assume are like in their early 30s or mid 30s, it's like they're 27 years old. And I'm like it's weird to me getting to a place in my life where like most famous people, most people that are kind of up and coming are in their 20s. Like before, like you look at professional football players, you look at, and you're like, that dude's 25. and it's weird to me.
I'm looking at the opposite end of things, and I'm looking at the people that are now aging. It's like I saw this clip of Tom Cruise during the whole Top Gun like promotional stuff. Age finally caught up with them. Like he's starting to look like his age.
I think he gets a lot of work done too, doesn't he? Because I think I saw a TikTok where they were like comparing how he looks, and like you can tell he's gotten some Botox or whatever.
And you could honestly too, the pandemic aged a lot of us in a way that like it all aged us mentally and physically. But like I'm looking at it, like I noticed like nice. Like he's he's finally caught up. And the other one that blows my mind too is Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day. He's gonna be 50.
He's gonna be 50.
He's gonna be 50.
Hold on 1 second.
Hannah's looking this up right now, guys. She's clacking away.
Oh my gosh, he is 50.
Yeah, he's 50.
That's weird to me.
Because
why is that weird to me?
They got popular when I was like 13 or 14, and he was about 20, 18 to 20.
That's so strange to me. Like I don't know why that shocks me so much.
I
think I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. Like he's like early 20s. He's very early 20s, like 22 max, right? He was super young when they got famous. So like he's 50, and I'm looking at him now, and you look at him like because he wears the makeup on stage and all that stuff in the music videos.
I think that's what it is. I think I just assumed he was younger than he is.
Right, and then when he's like look at him in normal clips, like and podcasts or interviews and stuff, he doesn't wear all the makeup, and like you're like, oh boy, here it comes. Like he's getting there.
You know, the one that I thought was interesting is I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan. Did you watch Obi-Wan?
Oh yeah, we loved it.
So I loved it too, and it's interesting seeing Hayden Christensen looks so much older than Ewan McGregor.
Oh,
like, and we know that Ewan McGregor is older than Hayden Christensen, but you see that like people just age differently. Like it's.
I do think it's very cool though. They caught what's his name at just the right time. They caught Ewan McGregor at just the right time because he's at that age now where you can see how he's going to age and look like Sir Alec Guinness, who played Obi-Wan in Star Wars.
Right.
I feel bad.
That was great casting.
I feel bad for Alec Guinness because he's eventually going to be phased out as the original Obi-Wan of Star Wars because Ewan McGregor's so beloved now. But then again, to Alec Guinness, he was annoyed with it. He doesn't want anything. Really? He didn't want any. He's now passed, but he did not want anything to do with it any further. And I think his estate has made it clear he didn't want to be involved with it anymore because he was one of those ones that was like a classically trained actor, like Juilliard or one of those schools, and he did Broadway and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But his most famous thing he was known for was Star Wars, so I guess he felt like insulted by it.
Oh, okay.
Where there's a lot of people that are embracing the thing, like Mark Hamill embraces it. He embraces the fact that he's Luke Skywalker.
We know that Harrison Ford does not embrace any of it.
Yeah, like Harrison Ford does not embrace,
He's like, I'm done with this crap. Kill me off.
Carrie Fisher started to embrace, Princess Leia and stuff like that. And they're starting to, like, a lot of them are coming around. Like Dan Aykroyd and the people that played in Ghostbusters, like Dan Aykroyd knows that Ghostbusters is his, most famous body of work.
Right.
And stuff like that. And they start to embrace it and they realize that they can profit off it and, contribute to charities and all that kind of stuff and do a lot of things. Because Ghostbusters has a big charity thing. This is not completely off topic, but it's a very cool thing they do. Like there's a thing where a lot of Ghostbusters fans will get together across the country and they will form their own divisions of Ghostbusters.
Oh, that's
and they
so
wear
cool.
the costumes and all that kind of stuff. But they do cool things like they go to children's hospitals and they do fundraising events and stuff like that dressed as Ghostbusters. So now what they do, Dan Aykroyd, who runs the whole Ghostbusters empire, along with Sony, they now have this program where like those divisions of Ghostbusters can send in their patches and stuff that they wear, like, Ghostbusters of Fort Lauderdale. They can send it in to Dan Aykroyd at Ghost Corps, who runs the company, and they will look at your work, what you do with the community and all that kind of stuff, and they will certify you as official Ghostbusters. And then
that's actually really cool.
Yeah, and you get this is also on the topic Star Wars, this is the thing they have I think it's the 51st Legion or something like that, but it's the largest group of Stormtrooper cosplayers in the world.
I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah, they were at a convention in Florida that I was at.
Yeah, so they're the largest group of Stormtrooper cosplayers in the country, and might even be the world now. And their thing is they go around and they do charity work for children's hospitals and stuff like that, dressed as Stormtroopers, and they do a lot of charity work. So what they've done for what Star Wars has done for them, now that Disney owns it and stuff like that, is there have been people like that are part of the 51st Legion or whatever it is. I'm probably getting it wrong, but that group, there's people that Disney has gone to people in that group and they have put them in shows like The Mandalorian and stuff as stand-ins, as actual Stormtrooper stand-ins and stuff. So,
and their costumes look like very legitimate. Like,
it's actually very, very cool. And
yeah,
I was telling Pao about this, where it's like on the topic of growing up, it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, yes, Star Wars is just a movie. And I was telling Pal, I was like, yeah, a lot of people see it as a movie, but when you think about it, there's people that watch Star Wars and they decide right then and there as a young child, I want to be a pilot. You know, like, I'm going to be a pilot when I grow up. Or there was actually one that was really interesting during the Super Bowl one year. There was a commercial for recycling or something, and this guy met Marty McFly and Doc Brown, like the actors, Michael J. Fox and stuff, and he had a lunch with him. He said, I saw Back to the Future, and he's like, I decided right then and there I wanted to become a scientist. And then he was developing this whole thing. He actually, like, the weird thing in Back to the Future, the Mr. Fusion that would turn the trash into fuel for the DeLorean, that's what he designed. Like, he designed his own version of that to recycle trash.
It's pretty cool that, like, certain...
And it's a movie.
Things that are beloved inspire, you know, kind of like real world careers or
and
stuff like that.
Ghostbusters was a huge inspiration for me in like things like paranormal and ghost and all that kind of stuff. Like, I have a very like strong obsession with things like ghost and paranormal and things like that.
Really? Have we ever had that conversation?
We haven't had that conversation.
Oh, because like I went through like growing up, my dad and I used to watch like those paranormal shows, like Ghost Hunters, like Ghost Adventures. My best friend and I, when I went to visit her in Pennsylvania, we went to the East State Penitentiary?
Yeah, very creepy stuff.
It's creepy and like. So I would never go ghost hunting because I would just pee my pants.
I'm like totally invested in like haunted places and stuff like that. I read websites.
That's so interesting. Like I don't know why that's surprising about you. I think it's because you're logical.
Yeah.
So, but I think you probably like it because you want to find a reason. You want an answer. Like give me some kind of. It's weird too
because like Pal. We'll talk about Pal for a second. Pal got freaked out because, bless her heart, she thinks there's something in her house. And it's kind of weird because I walk in her house and I get kind of like a weird vibe out of it too, but it's not threatening. Nothing's threatening, right? And that's when you should be concerned, is if the stuff that happens in your home is threatening. Like
if things are being thrown across.
Or aggressive, doors are slamming aggressively hard and stuff like that's a threat, right? But she doesn't, from what she tells me, she doesn't seem to have any of that. But she was walking in the kitchen, it was the middle of the night or something like that, and she has one of those scales that weighs food, and the scale magically turned on with nothing on it.
Oh, gosh.
And I explained to her, I was like, well, you know, it's hot in your home, you know, heat expands and that battery compartment might have, you know, like heated up and flexed and the battery might have retapped or whatever and it activated the scale. Like anything can happen, right? But like, you know, but that was to calm her down, which it's true. That could be the case. Like heat just, you know, flex the battery in it.
If something weird were to happen, I want to try to find every single logical reason before I get myself worked up.
You're super like ghosts are in your home.
Because I'm like praying. I'm like, please let it be science. Let it be something that like
I've heard doors close and stuff in her home. Like, or like knocks.
Has that always been the case or did this just kind of start coming up?
It's when she moved in there, she's always knows. Now her grandparents, she lives with her grandparents. Her grandparents may have been putting up with it for years and not done anything about it, right?
Yeah,
but like for her, it's
like...
new. But like, I get a little bit of a weird vibe in her home, but none of it's threatening, and that's what I reassure her. I was like, none of it's threatening. You know, it's just weird stuff that happens, and you kind of like cope. And I tell her, I was like, don't dwell on it, and don't make it look like don't make it hinder your life, because then it keeps happening. Whereas like if it is a ghost that's trying to like, you know, mess with you, like it's again, you ignore it and you become accustomed to it, it stops, it doesn't work anymore, it stops doing it, you know. But like it's one of those things, or it finds out you the person are not a threat. You
Right.
know? So like, but it's interesting stuff. But yeah, I've been obsessed with that stuff ever since I saw Ghostbusters, paranormal.
Oh, that's so interesting. I had
Yeah.
no idea. That's like the one thing that I did not know
Yeah, it's one of those small
about you.
things. Like I have obsession with horror movies and stuff like that. I'm very desensitized to them, but
Well, I can't watch horror. Like, it depends on the horror movie,
yeah. But you know, so you're 30 now. You don't feel it,
I,
and
I
you're
don't
but
feel
you're
it. I
starting
still
to-
feel like I'm in my young 20s. Or my
Yeah.
late 20s, sorry. Not young 20s. We passed
Yeah,
that.
you're past that.
We're done with that. Yeah.
Someone asked me in the
But-
chat, did I watch Ghost Rider? I did not watch Ghost Rider, but I did watch like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps and all that.
I
creepy
remember
stuff.
Are You Afraid of the Dark? I
And
remember
I
that show.
read all the Goosebumps when I was growing up and stuff like that.
Did you read the I think we talked about this on one episode. There's books that they had in like elementary schools that they had no reason to have in elementary schools with like the disturbing
Scary stories to tell in the dark.
Tell in the Dark with like the weird looking artwork, and like we're just like 7 years old looking at like distorted images.
Fun fact, that was one of my tattoo ideas for a few years.
Which monster or which thing were you looking
the
at?
clown buried in the dirt with the pipe. It's one of the covers.
Clown.
Yeah. Just look up Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and it's one of the covers. If you're looking at the original black and white
Oh
stuff.
yeah, okay. With the and it has like the blue and the red.
Yeah, the pipe.
Yeah, the pipe.
That was one of my tattoo ideas for a few years.
Did you end up seeing the movie?
Mm-hmm.
I never saw the
I
movie.
liked
Is
it.
it like scary, or is it more like kind of a nostalgia, kind of like these were the
It's a
stories I grew up
nostalgia
listening?
scare. It's not like
Yeah.
horrific. It's a nostalgia
Like
scare.
I can't go to sleep kind of
I
thing.
also had this
It's
wild
like,
idea. I still have a wild idea to like tattoo my leg with horror characters.
Who's your favorite horror character?
Chucky. Child's Play is my
Oh,
favorite
yeah.
horror character. And what's funny too is that was like an inside thing because I used to be so afraid of that when I was a kid. Like Chucky the doll is going to come kill you because my aunt used to scare me with it. And it freaked me out as a kid. And then like as you get older and you start getting into that kind of stuff, you know, it's all fun and games and it's all fake. But like I was going to do the whole 80s Chucky with a knife on my thigh.
Did you watch my dad used to have me watch this growing up, and like we talk about this, I'm like, where did you get off having me watch this as a kid?
Yeah.
It was Crypt Keeper,
Oh,
Tales from the
Tales
Crypt
from the
or something
Crypt.
like that.
HBO.
And like my dad said that I used to laugh like crazy. Like he'd be like hee hee, and I would just lose it. And then eventually, as I got older, then I started to cry.
Yeah.
It's like then I started to realize like, oh, this is Tales
Yeah,
from the
no,
Crypt.
it's
I
very
remember
good
that. Though.
stuff.
And
But,
he had a mask. He would chase like me around the house with it. So,
So,
like
on this note, you don't feel 30. So that's good.
do
That's
not.
actually really, really good. Like you're confident in your age. You're confident. You're starting to get confident at where you're in life, which is very, very good. So now, you know, there's a couple of things I wanted to ask you here
yes.
and get a little birthday celebration here. So I want to learn some things that now that you're 30, I want to learn about I want to hear about some things you learned while you were 20.
Okay.
And this
Just
accounts
in my
for
20s in general, right?
this accounts
Like,
for
just-
your general era of the 20, you know, 18 to 30, you know, that general
Okay.
era of young youth and living free and all this kind of stuff. So the first thing I want to learn about is like, what did you learn about your relationships in your 20s?
Do you mean like romantic relationships, or do you
In
mean
general,
like
romantic's an
general?
interesting one because, you know, you're obviously married now. So
I'm
like,
married,
what
yeah.
did you learn like growing up? Now, you didn't have very many like boyfriends and stuff like that growing up, right?
I only had one boyfriend. So like in total, I had my ex-boyfriend, and then when I dated Dustin, he was my boyfriend. Now I'm married
Right.
to Dustin. So I've only had like 2 serious relationships. I never dated. Like I was never like someone like on Tinder or like
Right.
trying to, and that's not me like striking it out. It's just like that's what ended up happening.
You're
is
not that person. Those things are not for everybody, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I honestly, I think it would have messed with my
I'm gonna actually go out there and
self-worth a
say
little
it,
bit in the
like,
sense of like it probably would have hurt me, you know what I
Right.
mean?
I'm
In the
gonna go
sense
out
of like
there and
because
be
I always
honest
look
with
for
you.
approval.
I'll be honest with you. For those of you young people that listen to this and you're watching us here, Tinder is not the place really to find a serious relationship. It's not. Okay, that
I
is
think you can, but it's like finding a needle in a haystack, probably.
right. If your odds are against you. I'll rephrase it. The odds are against you
Yeah.
if you're going on places like Tinder and stuff like that for long-term serious relationships. Those are hookup apps, okay? Let's be realistic. People find it right because the whole thing's based off attraction. The initial attraction of the person. Oh, swipe right, swipe left. Oh, you're ugly. Swipe right. Blah blah blah. I don't find you attractive. Like it's all built on attraction. Those apps. Now they've modified it over the years. Like, now they have things, not Tinder itself, but there's different apps that have come out like Hinge and stuff like that that are trying to be more geared towards personality and interest, etc. But Tinder itself, which is the prime one, is not an app to go find someone to be in a serious relationship. It just doesn't work.
Right. I think maybe when it was first developed, the intentions were there, but you see a lot of the times with apps, they kind of take a life of its own.
Yeah.
Like think of Twitter, for example. Twitter was supposed to be used for something completely different, and now it's taken its life of its own, being kind of like a shitpost website.
So growing up in your 20s, like now this is going to be a hard thing to kind of like figure out because you only had the one relationship outside of Dustin. But like, what was always your like? Were you always like the timid one? Like, would you wait for people to approach you?
So this is what's fascinating, and this kind of ties into one of the episodes that we talked about with weight, right? Yeah. When I was on like the heavier side, and I'm back on the heavier side, it's fine, I'll own it. But like back when like I was coming out of high school, I had like that baby, like chubby weight, like nobody paid any attention. When I got to my early 20s, the weight just started to like fly off, and then with it came attention, and men were a little bit more prone to like approach me,
right?
Because I was this like cute little thing in my 20s. So even if I like had remained like the same weight or whatever the case is, I'm not someone that necessarily approaches. But with Dustin, I approached Dustin. Like I felt a little bit bold with that one. Like, but like in like past like situations, it was usually like someone would come up to me, or like in the case of my ex-boyfriend, like there was more like pursuing like probably on his end to me. That was like a weird, like it's so long ago, but I remember I liked him, but he didn't want to give me the time of day, and so then I was like no, and then he started to be like, oh wait, I think I like you. So there was a lot of back and forth.
Did you ever do the bar thing? Like did you ever go to like the bars with like girlfriends and stuff like that and do any of that? No,
I didn't. By the time I had graduated high school, a lot of my friends went away for college, and I just naturally, I'm not an extrovert type of like person. Like I liked sitting and playing video games. Like
you're more inclined to meet somebody at Hannah. Then, like I said, we'll reiterate, Hannah is married, so you don't get an influx of weird like messages and tweets or whatever. Like you are
that
married.
Still doesn't stop people. Like that's the thing. Like that's how like the internet is. Like it.
Yeah, but you're a married woman. So, but like, 20s Hannah, like you would have been more inclined to like go meet somebody at a Barnes and Noble or whatever.
I've always kind of had the mindset of like, I never wanted to date for fun. I wanted to date with the potential of like being like, my goal is marriage.
Right.
Marriage, family. Yeah, I'm on a mission. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just as I think some people are like, just go out, have some dates, get to know some people. I'm the kind of person that like I wear my heart on my sleeve. I know I'm the type that could fall easily. I could be taken advantage of. I can be very vulnerable. And so it wouldn't have done me any good. It probably would have caused more heartbreak if I was the type that's like, yeah, sure, let me go on multiple dates. Like,
in my personal opinion, I don't think it's wrong to be on a mission. Like you date to, but I do feel like people set themselves up for failure. You see them all the time where it's like, oh, I want to be married in a year. Or I want to do this in a year, I want to have my family. Like they want to be married and locked down within a year, and they start dating. It's like you're setting yourself up for disappointment when you do that. It takes a while to get to know somebody and learn the ins and outs of them, and you never stop learning about somebody.
That's true, and so like that's why I feel a little bit divided in like that particular topic, because I think when you're in your early 20s, there's so much time for self-discovery,
right?
Versus like by the time like I'm in my late 20s, like I already kind of have an idea of what I want,
There's a
you
lot of
know?
societal issues too. They're like their
Yeah.
20s. Oh, you need to get your career in order, and you need to go meet a nice, husband, or for women, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you need to meet a nice husband so you can start a family
Mm-hmm.
and be taken care of. Whereas like with men, it's like you need to go meet somebody, get your job, meet somebody, slow down, start a
Yeah.
family, da da da
Right.
da da type of
And
thing.
that
And
really influences you in your 20s. Like, I
oh
didn't even
yeah,
realize how much that had a chokehold on me until I got out of my 20s.
right,
And then I realized nobody actually gives a damn. Like,
right,
nobody really cares what you do at the end of it. But,
right.
like, we're still projecting on, like, the younger generations, like, go to college, get a
It's almost like you
degree.
get
Like,
judged. It's almost like in the end, like when you're in your 30s and you hit your 40s, it's almost like you get judged because you didn't do enough in your 20s. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That's
And then, but you know what's fascinating? All the women I've spoken to, they're like, how do you feel leaving your 20s? I'm like, I feel like I didn't do enough.
right.
And they're like, honestly, this is the time in your life, your 30s is when you're going to find that you are going to do those things.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we're not forgiving enough to people in their 20s.
Hmm.
We place a lot of expectations on them. We place a lot of like, societal pressures on them. You don't know what you're doing in your
I did
20s, because I didn't know what I was doing in my 20s.
yeah.
Like,
I did an episode. I did a podcast. I did a guest spot on a podcast a year or two ago, and we talked about this topic. And one of the things I mentioned in that show is like we are constantly raised to prepare for the future. You need to do good in elementary school so you can get into the good high school and get into the AP classes. You need to get into the AP classes so you can get into the good college. You need the good college so you can get a good job. And you need a good job so you can go and, feed the economy and get a house and da 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 da. But it's never like, it's always notice how it's always a constant pressure to prepare for the future. And like people don't live in the now because if they're constantly listening to that influence, it's a constant cycle of prepare for the future.
I'll give you a perfect example. When I graduated high school, I went the community college route,
Yeah.
which is very looked down upon depending on where you are. What's like people for whatever reason want to spit on community college, and I'm like, okay,
What's
go ahead
even-
and spend more money. Like,
What's even worse, I think, is not only the community college. Community college is becoming more accepted because of finances.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I have a real big problem with people that put down trades.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to go to a trade school and become a plumber. Plumbers make really damn good money. They
they
make more
make good money,
than me.
and there's a need for it. Like,
Yeah.
we need people going into trade schools.
Right. There's plumbers. A good plumber will make more money than me in a year. So like, and the same thing with mechanics. Auto mechanics make good money if they're good at what they do and they specialize. You can't just take your
Electricians,
Ferrari
like-
to any. You can't take your Ferrari to Jiffy Lube and get it worked on. You have to take it to a specialized mechanic, and they're paid very well. It's one of those things. Like mechanics are paid well. Plumbers, electricians, trade. Like I'm tired of people like putting down these type of things.
Not everybody wants to be a lawyer. Not everybody wants to be a doctor.
Right.
Not everybody wants to be like. So no, I get it. But I got so much backlash for community college.
Yeah.
And that made me insecure going into it. By the time because I did like a few years of community college and I
Yeah.
transferred to university, nobody cared. No one cares. Like, that's the thing. I think, like, I don't know what high school guidance counselors are on sometimes. Like, I think they're great, but like there are
Right.
some that are very like, you can't, like, when I was said, well, I'm thinking of going to like this community college because I knew I wanted to stay home. I knew I didn't want to go away. Like, my sister was really young. I still
Right.
wanted to have a relationship with her. Like, I knew the reasons why I wanted to go to community college. They were like, why would you want to go there? I'm thinking, like, one, why are you getting like a commission cut or something? Like, if I decide to go to UCF, like,
Well, no, that's here's the
Yeah.
thing. They may not necessarily get a commission cut directly, but
Yeah.
it reflects very well on the school. So like if the high school says, oh, we have, X amount of people that get into, Ivy League schools, like 5% of our students, 10% of our students get into Ivy League schools. That makes the school look very, very good. And then people
Right.
move to that neighborhood to get into that school, which boosts the economy for that city and et cetera, et cetera. Like it's all a system.
it's a system. It all links together.
Right.
But by the time I went to, nobody cared. Like, no one cares now. Like,
Honestly,
for me, if I were to get a job, they'd be like, do you have your bachelor's? I'd be like, yeah, that's it. They don't care if I went to Harvard or if I went to FAU or UCF or.
the only time I think that really, really matters The only time I think that where you actually went to college matters is if you're in that top tier position, you know, like a Goldman Sachs or like some top tier law firm or whatever, and you're competing, like you're from Harvard and you're competing with someone that went to Berkeley or vice versa or something like that, you know, like then it kind of, you know, they'll
like
take the
if
guy from
like if
Harvard.
you're a musician and you go to Juilliard or something, like that's a standout one of those,
right?
like,
That's the best music school in the world,
right?
That will
Exactly.
make an impact, right? But like, let's be realistic. You know, like in my position, you're trying to get into IT and you're trying, you know, you're getting a programmer or whatever. Like, they don't care whether you got it at Harvard or Princeton or Stanford or whatever. But if you are a bright mind and you did really, really well, I'll full disclosure, I do not have a college degree. I do not have a college degree, period. I do have 10 years, almost 15 years experience in my job. And I've interviewed at Amazon twice. So, and Amazon's one of the largest companies in the world, if not the largest. So you can do it without the degree. You just have to get the experience and you have to be very good at what you do.
Right.
And that's a reality of the thing, you know. And, but that it's interesting because, you know, it's interesting because we're constantly forced to do this, that, this, and this. And, you know, like we're talking about like career now, you know, we've talking about relationships and how this, but now we're like in this career mode of things where it's like, this is stuff you learn in your 20s, like the freedom and the expression to do what you want and to learn and to progress and become, because people don't know what they want to be when they're in their 20s. Most people don't know what they want to do in their 20s.
And the thing is, I would say too, people are even in your 30s, like, I don't even know what I want to do or I'm supposed to do, or, you know, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm much more at peace about it than I was in my 20s. Like, I'm in this place now where I'm like, I don't need to know, because life is going to go its course and I'm going to just take the steps and something will lead me to something eventually, like on God's plan. In my 20s, I was a little bit more like anxious. And by a little bit anxious, I mean a lot anxious about it.
See, my girlfriend felt a lot of those pressures growing up. It's like, you got to go to talk to the counselors, and the counselors tell you all this stuff. Like, you need to do this, and you need calculus. She wanted to do occupational therapy. That was her goal. That was her life goal. She wanted to help people and do occupational therapy. If you don't know what an occupational therapist is, it's similar to a physical therapist. Physical therapists help you recover from injuries. Whereas occupational therapists, if I'm remembering this correctly, they help you like adapt to life-changing injuries.
Oh, okay. So like if you're paralyzed or something, like adjusting to like what that
the very extreme example,
like.
But yes, like they help you adapt to injuries that have changed your life. They help you adapt to the life changes. So like that's what she does. It's really simple things like, for example, someone broke their arm and it's done permanent damage, right? So she'll go through like she was telling me about an example would be like someone like needs to learn how to brush their teeth again, like relearn how to brush their teeth because they've injured themselves in such a way that you can't do it to stand. That's what an occupational therapist does. So that's what she wanted to learn. And she went through that whole thing. They're like, you need to take calculus to get into this college and da-da-da-da-da. And then you got to go do 6 years of school to be an occupational therapist. I'm like, she was telling me all this stuff. And I was like, why don't we just figure out what it takes to get you in the door? And we found out there's a position, an occupational therapy assistant. And we found schools, trade schools, you know, trade schools that would teach her the program. She's gone through the program. Someone just mentioned this in the chat, and I want to acknowledge it because it's actually very, very true. It says, they say occupational therapy is very hard and really tests your patience. Pal's patience is tested every day. And she's learning that now. Wow. That's why she's so patient with me. Like she's built to like just be patient. And it's an amazing feat. It's one of the things I truly do love about her is how her patience.
Well, she's gonna do great with it. Like I see with some of the stuff she posts.
She's very caring. She's
really passionate about it too.
She's passionate. She loves what she does. She loves it, and she's starting to get attached to the people she treats. And she's gonna be sad when she has to leave, because she's in that whole field work thing right now, getting experience under her belt. So, but we were like, okay, let's go to a trade school. We looked at a trade school, and then she did the research and stuff. She found out there's not much difference that an occupational therapist assistant does versus the occupational therapist. If anything, the assistant does more work. And then the full top tier doctorate position is more administrative type of work. So she's really doing what she wants to do by being just the assistant.
Oh, okay.
And we found out doing the assistant pays very good money. For LA, it pays decent money.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing she learned is that she can do it in 2 years and then start working.
That's good.
Rather than, be sitting there in 7 years of school, 6, 7 years of school, racking up 300 grand in student loan debt. She gets out it was an expensive school. It was like 50 grand. She got out at 50 grand, but she's working in 2 years, give or take, assuming everything works right, And that's what.
But that's better than the 300 grand.
Yeah, and sitting in school. Because what happens is you find out, and this is what I learned, when you get out of school, just because you went to school doesn't mean crap. They're like, well, what have you done experience-wise? What have you learned? Because everything they teach you, and she learned this too, everything they teach you in school is a picture-perfect environment. It's not a reflection of reality. You learn that with teaching. It's not a reflection of reality. And this is something you learn when you're young.
That I need. Yep. They're like, you don't, and with teaching, that's why it's so important that you have an internship year.
Yeah.
Where you're, instead of just being in the classroom, you're like in a classroom environment and you're teaching the kids. Sometimes they'll have you step in to teach the kids for the full semester while the actual teacher is kind of the passive observer. So they're really big on that. And that's where I learned. I was like, I don't know if I want to be an elementary teacher no more.
Too. Like Pal's learning real fast, like how to handle real world environment, because they don't teach you this stuff in school. They don't teach you the things about like insurance. The biggest thing I learned in IT, because IT teaches you all this stuff. Oh, you do this, and this, right? And you get this. And this fixes this, right? What they don't teach you is you have to go to you have to go to your boss, who has to go to a CTO, who has to approve a budget, and then you're like, oh, I need $5,000 for this server. Yeah, that's not in the budget. Figure it out another way.
Yeah,
like they don't teach you about budgets and office politics and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I could, if I have the money, I could do it. Yeah. But you learn real fast. Your team has a budget of $2 million a year. That includes salaries. And stuff like that.
Life is the teacher more than
life is
the
teacher of everything.
Life is the teacher of everything. Like, and it's funny, like, I sat and I thought about it. I'm like, how much have I actually forgot from college? Like, how much do I just not remember?
Yeah.
Like, at all. Like, but yet I'm learning more because, like, I'm in a classroom setting and I'm working every day, like, with kids. Like,
this is going to be so damn embarrassing, but what was the one, to answer your question, the one thing I forgot and I don't remember how to do off the top of my head is divide the fractions or whatever.
Like long division?
Yeah,
or you mean
like fractions. So
it's like if it's like 1.5 divided by like 2/3. Oh, I remember that surprisingly.
Yeah. I do remember PEMDAS.
I remember PEMDAS too.
Yeah, but
I don't let's not test me on it. Like,
but I don't really need it, right? And because reality too is the more you do it over time, and the more you naturally just start remembering. Like,
I think what I've realized is like, because I was one of those kids that's like, why do I got to learn this when I'm not even going to use it? And I think the reality of it is I think you're just training yourself to use your brain to think critically. Like, you're just developing. I think if anything, it's just to help skills, like in the future.
You know what gets me to touch on that? Remember, you ever read those books? Like your teacher had you read these books in school, and you're like, "This is stupid. Why am I reading this?" Like Animal Farm. Like, why the hell am I reading about Animal Farm?
Yeah.
And then like, this is a political statement, but like, we'll talk. Hannah and I will talk about how we're going to address this thing, the whole Roe v. Wade versus thing. Hannah and I have
that's a separate episode.
Yeah, but Hannah and I have not had a discussion on how we want to approach it. But we probably won't even do an episode on it, but we'll do some kind of TikTok clip or something, But you read Animal Farm, you read 1984, you read like Fahrenheit 451, and you realize, holy crap, this is the life like I'm living in right now.
I don't think I read it.
I'll give you an even more modern example.
I remember. I think I read Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I'll give you a very relevant example. When the Roe v. Wade thing happened, you notice how everyone's like, "Handmaid's Tale, y'all, Handmaid's Tale, y'all," like da 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 da. Like, here's my blurb. Here's my takes me out of PG-13 for them. Motherfucker, pay attention to what's going on around you, and not your Netflix queue. Yes, that's a Netflix, but like, pay attention. This has been going on for a while. You know what I mean? Like, it's just wild how like. You think, oh, why am I even reading this? And then you realize, like, it's reality. And
I
like,
think that's why for so long they had us read those books. There are like a bunch that I remember
and
that
the
were just
irony
like on
behind
the.
it now is that's the irony is like that's why they're trying to ban them. Not every state's doing it, but there's a lot of states trying to ban these books. Like, you ever think
I've
about
heard
that?
about that.
Yeah.
That's interesting that because when I went to Barnes and Noble, I saw like on the I don't know if you've seen like one of the new tables they have on at Barnes and Noble. It's like books that are banned or books
Yeah.
that were banned or something like
Right.
that. And I was like, that's an interesting like table to have. Like,
Interesting fun fact. Me and Pal did a date. It's a fun little date.
mhm,
Pal's a big book reader like you.
mhm,
And I took her to the LA Public Library. And it's this
mhm,
massive old library from like, early 1900s. It's when it was
mhm,
built, right? It's a cornerstone of downtown. It's an old building. It's a
mhm,
beautiful library. It was survived a fire. It's been renovated, everything like that.
mhm.
Amazing date, by the way. If you have if you two are kind of nerdy, find a city that has an old library and you will have an amazing time. This
Right.
library looks like the ones you see in movies, the big wooden
Like
bookshelf.
the fancy
Yeah,
like.
beautiful old, wood
Mhm,
cabinetry and stuff like that. The children's section was adorable. It looked like, a classic children's bookstore
mhm,
type of thing. Beautiful, beautiful library. But there's a section there, to answer what you're saying. There's a section like these are books that have been banned in various states throughout the country. And it said, and certain communities. And they had a little note there that said, we do not ban any books at the LA Public Library. If you are looking
mhm.
for a specific book that has been banned in your community, you can get it here.
Oh, okay.
You know, and it was
Mhm,
like, but yeah, like like you think about it, it's like, why are they getting us to ban these? Why are they trying to ban these books?
mhm,
Because they express all the flaws in the system, you know.
mhm.
And we're like, why are we on this topic? But this is something I learned in, my 30s. Like this is literally like it's a system trying to keep people in line, to fit some kind of agenda. And it's sad. It's sad how I think about this, where it's like, and this is something I'm learning, is it's bothering me how much the government, and when I say government, I'm more talking towards local governments and stuff like their own specific states and stuff, not necessarily federal, but federal has a part in this too. It really bothers me how they really do what they can to keep people from being educated. Like, think about it. Like, think about your state and the state you live in, and like how it's like it's a constant. They don't want you to get educated. They want you to fit into the system. They want you to go to college. They want you to get the job. They want you to get in the student loan debt. They want you to get the job. They want you to buy the home to get into more debt, and they want you to
That
retire with no money.
that was actually something that during COVID, like I had read a lot of finance books because I was
Right.
like, let me learn about finance because like they don't teach that in school.
Right.
Although I think Florida just passed a thing where like finance classes are going to be mandatory for high schoolers.
Yeah.
But I don't know I don't know much about it other
Which
than that.
I on paper I can say, oh, that's good. They should teach about finances, but it's like,
Right.
what are they going to teach in
What are
terms
they
of
teach?
finances? Oh,
But I
start
remember
saving, kick into your 401ks.
I remember when in these books that I read, one of the things is that society does not want to teach people necessarily about finances because lack of education in finances means kind of like more money for those that are
That
on
have
top.
it.
Yeah. And so it's actually surprising how much I didn't even understand about finances because I was too intimidated by it. I'm like, this is going to be too difficult for me. But now I'm
That's
just reading and I'm like, oh, I I get it now. Like, and so I'm like, I want people to be able to like understand retirement accounts or
right.
stuff like that because there's just like it was funny. I was talking to my mom the other day. She's an immigrant. So
Right.
she's not from the United States. She's been here for years now though. She's been here for like almost 30 years. But it's interesting, like she'll even tell me, she's like, I don't know what any of it means.
Right.
Like and I've had to I'm like, well, I'm like, what's the interest on the thing? And she's like, well, I don't know. I don't even know what that is. And I have to remind myself a lot of people are actually like that. They don't have
Oh yeah,
any
for sure.
knowledge. And it's not any of their fault. More so it's the system doesn't teach you. Like it's not there to help you understand it.
It's interesting to me because, like, we're talking about finances now. It's interesting to me is how and I'm starting to learn this more now. Whether or not it's true, it may sound conspiracy theorist here, but I'm really, really starting to believe is like the ability to it's taught to you to amass wealth. You need to save and you need to invest. But have you ever like sat and thought about it and be like, okay, I'm going to start saving so I can invest and et cetera, et cetera. You ever thought about all the other things that like come into play that keep you from doing that? And it's stuff that's not even within your fault. Like the inflation rate right now is an example. Oh, I want to start saving and putting away for a home, et cetera, et cetera. But I can't now because, you know, my eggs are now $3.50 a carton versus the or $1.99 I used to pay. You know, like it's stuff that's out of your control that keeps that thing from happening. But people will preach their mouth. Oh, you got to save and live within your means and invest and invest. It's like, I'm trying. Yeah. You know, like I'm trying to do this. And, you know, like I've made stupid mistakes. Everyone gets into stupid mistakes. Like, yeah, we buy stupid things on credit cards when we're young. You know, I bought a lot of crap on credit cards that I don't even know what it was.
Top 3 regrets of my 20s is the stupid credit card. The stupid credit card.
You know, like I don't even know what I bought, you know, half the time. And it's just, it's a constant cycle of like save and invest, da, 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 da. And then like you think about this is an interesting one. I just realized this today when I was thinking about it before we started, like the 401k. Yeah. Kick into your 401k, you take your 401k, and then they take your money and they invest it, and then you get a cut of that back in your 401k. And your employer, if they're a good employer, will put it on it too. Da, 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 da. When the economy goes to crap, who's left holding the bag? The people that invested in the 401ks. Your blue collar people living means to means that invested in 401ks. They're the ones left holding the bag when this stuff hits a mess.
That's like, one of the things that those books, like, it's actually, you would probably actually really like it. It's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Robert Kiyosaki.
I have not heard that one. I heard of Rich Poor Poor Dad. I actually read the Dave Ramsey one.
Oh, wait. No, it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's Robert Kiyosaki. And then the other one is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by like Rami Seth or whatever.
Yeah.
But I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it's interesting how they're like, this system is to, basically it does not benefit the poor or middle class. Right. Which the majority of the United States is the poor and middle class. Like, that's majority of America. That's what we are.
Here's another thing I don't think is expressed enough is most of these people that do get rich, they get it through some kind of inheritance or, you know, some other means like that. It's very, very rare that someone amasses the wealth from the ground up. It's very rare.
It can be done though. Like,
it can be done. No, it can be done. It's very, very rare. I will give you the Dave Ramsey example. Okay. He constantly preaches like, this is how I got rich. I did this money saving plan, blah, 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 blah. No, you got rich writing books and doing podcasts and television shows and et cetera, explaining that process. That's where your true wealth came from. Not because you put money in a change jar every day, you know.
So I did listen to a little bit like of his, because I've listened to a bunch of the finance people. And so like, I think in the beginning, like he did have to go through like that initial like struggle, like,
oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. To like kind of get himself out of it. But I think for sure his books and his classes, like they're probably like kind of like the funnel right now that
they're the true generators of his wealth. Right. It's not because he took a little coupon book and put $5 for this and 10 like, no. That didn't turn him into a millionaire. It got him out of the hole he was in.
Right.
But it did not turn him into a millionaire. The books and the podcasts and the radio shows is what turned him into a millionaire. Let's be realistic. You know, and that's one of those things. And this is what he's like, this is the thing these people sell. Follow my program, take my classes, buy my books, and you will learn how to be a millionaire too.
I think, because I was at some point, like I was watching some of like, because you know Dave Ramsey has like a call show where like they call and they get advice. So like I was watching like some of his like top 3, like, you know, the ones where like he's clearly like, what on earth did you do?
Yeah.
And it was, this woman had called in. She's like, my husband and I are like $1 million in debt.
Right.
And like his reaction, he was like, what in tarnation? Like, And what was funny about it, and it's not funny because that's a lot of money.
That's
but
a
like
lot
the
of money. That's
comments,
bankruptcy.
the comments were like, suddenly my like $2,000 credit card debt doesn't look so bad.
Yeah.
Like,
The average person has about $3,000 to $5,000 in debt. It's probably more.
yeah, I think the last
realistically.
time I looked, I think it was like 6,000.
Yeah,
I think that's
not
like
counting
the
a home.
average.
That's not counting a
Right.
home. That's counting like a car loan. So it's more like $10,000 if you have a car loan. But just standard credit card debt, most people have $3,000 to $5,000.
Yeah.
You know, in credit card debt because they do things like they buy furniture for their home or they do car repairs on it and stuff. It happens. Okay, this is the reality of the thing. This is the reality of the
Like
world.
if something happened to my car, I have to put it on my credit card.
Yeah,
I don't like, you know.
I don't have I mean, if it's something simple like your brakes, $150 or whatever, like $200, yeah, you could do it. But like if your transmission dies and that's $1,500, like yeah, most people are putting that on their credit card. But like car loans and stuff like that. Now, people do make, I think, dumb mistakes with cars. They buy more car than they can afford almost all the time.
Yeah, I think probably one of the things that I actually do kind of agree with most finance people on, I think even Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki, like a bunch of them, don't buy a new car, like buy used.
If you buy a new car, if you buy a new car, you pay cash.
Yeah. But like now I'm more of the understanding of like, okay, like get used, don't get new. But I think that falls into society of like, we want like the newest, fanciest thing. And
that's why leases were I think that's why leases kind of became a thing. People want a new car every 3 to 5 years. So they get them in leases and then they never own any of it because they're just constantly, oh, I want a new Beamer. And then they lease a new Beamer,
I think like that. I mean, the financing is definitely something I learned in my 20s for sure. That's probably
we all
like,
make
top 10.
stupid financial, mistakes.
Yeah, and I have to remind myself that. But like, my sister, she's getting older, and so like I'm trying to like teach her to not make the mistakes that I did. Like, I'm like, if you get a job, like because you're living at home, because you're living at home with, mom and dad, like, and you don't have to pay like rent or stuff. Like, just take $100 from your paychecks in the future and put it in like a high interest savings account. Like do what I didn't do. Like I was very much like, I'm young, like I don't pay rent, like I can just use this money for whatever I want. I'm like, just put a little bit away. To like just a little bit. Like that's between like a really nice meal and like something that could grow in interest.
It's like one of those things, I look at things like a lot of people buy and I'm like, you're wasting money. Like coffee, like going to Starbucks and buying a Starbucks coffee.
I'm guilty with that though. Like
if that's your
Dave Ramsey would be so upset with me.
That's an indulgence though. If that's your indulgence, that's fine. But realistically, if you actually sat and thought about it, you would probably agree with me that it's a waste of money to go to Starbucks every day when I can buy my own coffee maker and just do it at home for $1 a cup versus, 3 something a cup.
The ones that are messing me up a lot though, it's like the subscription services.
I don't.
We got too many subscription services out there. Like it's driving me like
the one that's a real given and that people can have complete self-control over is the Postmates and the Uber Eats and all that. You're paying almost double what you're paying for the food if you were to go to the place and get it yourself.
If I just wanted to get a burger from McDonald's, like across the street.
It's like what, $15?
Do you want me to like see right now? Like I'm curious. Let me just
punch it in while I address the thing. So like, yeah, these services like DoorDash and all that kind of stuff, like it's a waste of cash. Get off your butt and go drive there and spend,
Eric's like, go get your chicken nuggets yourself, you lazy.
Walk to the place and get your damn chicken nuggets, and then walk back and eat them.
Okay, Okay, so this McDonald's is like 10 minutes for me. It's not the one that's across.
Okay, let's see with it. Hannah's punching this in right now.
All right, let's get a crispy chicken sandwich meal.
Okay, so what's the base price for a crispy chicken sandwich meal?
So looks like it says. Let me look this up because I feel like Uber Eats.
They inflate the price already. That's why I'm saying you need get something that you always get and you know the price of.
Okay, so let's do. I think all right. Let's just think of like a Big Mac meal.
Yeah.
I think a Big Mac meal will run you about like $4.99.
Damn.
I think that's a safe bet.
That's like about maybe $6 something here in California.
So let's say a Big Mac meal is $4.99.
Right.
That's just a safe area. Let's go with like a standard small, not the large size.
Right. We're gonna figure this out. We'll see how much money we're wasting here.
Medium Sprite. Okay, we're gonna add to cart. View cart. go to checkout. I'm trying to like not actually buy this. All right. So the Big Mac meal is $9.59.
That's
That is
after the
not
fees, or is that the base?
No, this is not after the fees. So if I just went across the street, I could get a Big Mac for $4.99 meal. It would probably be like 5 something with tax,
okay,
right?
so they've already inflated the price by $5, 100%. So you're paying $10 for it.
Yeah, you're paying $9.59 for the Big Mac meal. Now the delivery fee is $5.49.
$15, okay.
And so taxes and other fees are $3.57, which give you a grand total of $18.65 with tip not included. So I haven't even put the tip for the driver in yet.
So you're paying $13 to get a extra just to get that Big Mac, to have someone else get that Big Mac for you. Think about that. There's people that do this every day, sometimes multiple times a day. You know, they get their lunch delivered to them. They get their dinner delivered to them.
And, honestly, I don't even think it used to be that bad. I think Uber is a bit on a kick now. I think they are, just like, I don't know. I've heard different things. I've heard that Uber Eats has like a driver shortage, so they like need to like charge more. I don't know. I feel like where I live, absolutely not. There are drivers all over the place in this area. Like, but suddenly I don't want that Big Mac anymore. Like, I'll roll my lazy butt out of my bed and I'll walk to McDonald's.
So Pao and I went to a concert last month, and it was at a nice outdoor theater, right? And they have parking. So like parking was $30 on the cheap end, which I'm like, that's expensive, right? $30 is expensive, right? But I looked on, I was like, okay, well, let me see how much an Uber is to have them take us and drop us off, because we're not that far away. It's like 5 miles away. It was $15 one way. So $15 to get there, and then $15 to get back. It's $30. I might as well just pay for the parking and be in the comfort of my own vehicle and not have to rely on anybody else. Someone in the chat here said, what's crazy about this is the driver's only making $3 base on that delivery.
That's crazy to me. Like, I was thinking that they were paying their drivers more based off these fees. Like, there is no reason a Big Mac should be $9.59.
What's wild to me is like the pizza thing. This started with the pizza delivery thing. Like, before, you didn't used to have a delivery fee. You would just tip the pizza driver, and that was that. You could give them a $5-$6. Funny thing. I used to, when I was a smoker, I used to, how you can fill in on the delivery thing, like an extra note or whatever. I was like, there's an extra 10 in it for you if you get me a pack of smokes, and I put my brand. And this was like a pizza guy that we always had regularly on Friday night. Like, he was our guy. And he'd always come to our house. So I was like, hey, there's an extra 10 in for you if you get me a pack of smokes. And I gave him the brand. And then he brought my cigarettes.
That's so funny.
It was the nicest thing ever. He was a great guy. I honestly, he's one of those people I miss. Like, when I order food, I was like, he was a great guy. We used to get pizza every Friday when I was younger, and I lived with roommates. We'd always get pizza.
You know what's interesting? I don't even think pizza delivery costs as much as...
No, it doesn't. But they started tacking on driver fees and stuff like that. And the driver doesn't get any of it. It's just you're paying a fee, And I'm like, this is ridiculous. But yeah, this is that finance thing where it's like, learn where your money's going to an extent, and figure out how to curb it. Like, if Hannah has a big coffee indulgence, then maybe she should look at using the coffee maker she owns. You can get Starbucks.
And we have a nice coffee maker. We got it for the wedding. Like,
you can get Starbucks beans, girl, and just...
I know, but like, speaking of money though, like the price of coffee, like just like your standard like bag.
Are you a cup a dayer?
Yeah, I'm just 1 cup a day.
Get it at Costco. Pay for the big bag at Costco, and you'll save over. Because if you look closely at the Costco thing, it'll tell you price per,
Yeah, we ended
serving.
up getting we got the Dunkin' Donuts one at Costco. It was like this big thing, and it lasted us a long time, but we just haven't been able to get around to Costco, so hopefully soon.
Yeah, so like those are those things. Like, if you're a cup a dayer, just buy it at Costco and just... or if you really if you're one of those people that really likes to indulge in the different types of flavors and you want a different coffee this flavor, dude, just go to Ross and like Marshall's or whatever.
Oh yeah, I forgot, like they have all that kind of stuff.
You have to kind of be careful because they do have expiration dates, but if you go get those
check the dates on.
If you go get those like airtight, sealing type of containers, then they'll last a lot longer. But yeah, like if you want multiples of different brands or flavors or whatever, just go to like Ross and Marshalls and they have them up in the front, and they have the Starbucks, the Dunkin' Donuts, they have Kahlua, all these,
All
mainstream type of brands. But like a cup a day, but that's my thing though. Like I buy my coffee, but like I pay like my coffee bill's like $20 every couple of weeks. Oh
my God.
What is it?
There was an iguana on my window.
How big's the iguana?
Hold on. I kept hearing something and I was like, is Dustin doing? So hold on. Am I able to like turn off my camera real quick so I can
No,
open
we
the
want to see the
window?
iguana.
I know, but like I'm wearing like little tiny shorts. Like I'm not trying to show. Hold on. Am I able to turn the camera off? It won't mess with formatting. And then I'll turn it back on.
Well, here, we'll do this. Remember, I have this. Boom, I'm full screen now.
Okay.
Hannah lives in the Miami region.
Okay, let me try to...
Hannah's going to go look at this thing. This is wild.
Woo! He's right there.
Oh, she called the husband in to get the iguana. Now Dustin's in here, guys. You guys can't see this, but Hannah is now got Dustin in there. Oh, God, she freaked out.
She jumped.
This is interesting. Did you get a picture of it?
I thought you were messing with something in the living room.
Did you get a picture of it?
I did. I got a picture of it.
Okay, we'll use it as the episode thumbnail.
Okay. I thought Dustin was messing with something in the living room, and I was like, what is making all that noise?
That's funny.
And then... Why did Discord randomly log out on me? I was going to send it to
Rip.
you. Okay, you can put me back on.
Oh, yeah, you're back on.
Oh, okay.
I'm wearing these tiny shorts.
I'm wearing these tiny shorts, dude. I just saw his tail. Like when I turn around, I see like this big old tail like whipping around.
About how big do you think the iguana it was?
So
a foot?
A little bit longer, maybe like 16 inches long.
That's tail included, right?
Tail included.
What a foot long iguana? That's awesome. I used to have a pet iguana.
Did you?
Yeah, they're very difficult to maintain. You have to have like constant lighting on them. They shed.
So they're invasive species. So like we're having like a huge issue. There was actually a news story on the news like a few weeks ago that said the police are now getting involved because the Florida Fish and Wildlife or whatever was saying you can humanely like get rid of iguanas. Like I don't know, but they never clarified what that meant. Like they just say because now they're becoming such a nuisance. But Fish and Wildlife never told people what that means. And so unfortunately, if you don't give people clear direct directions, they kind of just run with it. So people were like shooting them with like BB guns. And police were getting phone calls of people just like having their guns waving around. And so they would go and be like,
shooting.
So they go around and be like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, there's a big old iguana out here and I'm trying to get, and so the police are like, you cannot shoot the iguana. You can trap the iguana and like put them like, so I think now Fish and Wildlife has to like come out with like a way to be like, this is what you guys got to do.
Someone
like,
in the chat here, before we go to break, we're going to go to break in a second here, but someone just mentioned, I'd eat an iguana before trying to eat a lionfish. There's actually like I hope you make it to California because there is a farmer's market here. Like the Los Angeles farmer's market. It's bougie. It's very bougie, but they have like a booth there that has like, like jerky, and they literally have like exotic, obscure jerkies, and they have like crocodile, and one of them is iguana.
Really?
Yeah, like lizard jerky.
So I won't let me log on to Discord, but I'll show you guys like on the...
Whoa, that's a big ass iguana.
Hello, can this...
That's big. Look at that. What are you going to name him?
Erik.
Nice. Nice. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to break. We will be back shortly here. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves in the chat here. I don't know. I'm gonna go refill my water and use the restroom. I don't know what Hannah's gonna do.
I'm gonna go take a bathroom break myself.
Okay, we'll be back very shortly here. We're gonna put the home screen on, so you'll just see our logo here, but we will be back shortly. So feel free to chat amongst yourself. I'm just gonna refill the water, do a bathroom break, and then we will get back to it. You've been listening to The Good People with Erik and Hannah, and we will be right back.
We'll be back.
Welcome back to The Good People with Erik and Hannah. We've been hanging out and talking about Hannah's 30s and what her 30s. We're talking about Hannah's 20s and what she's learning now that she's 30. So, you've talked about your experience with finances, relationships, and your career and education. Now, I'm not that much older than you.
Mm-hmm.
I only got about 8 years on you, but I'd like to believe I have more life experience, like in terms of myself versus you. I feel like I've done a lot more in life in terms of like wild. I've done more things that you would never think of doing.
Yeah, no, you've had more wild experiences.
Yeah. So what I'm curious about is, this is kind of like the little segment here where you can take some reins a little bit. Do you have any questions for me that you're curious about?
So like mine was like reflecting on my 20s. So I guess we can kind of look at this as like reflecting on your 30s in a way. So like I'll kind of ask questions along with that.
Okay.
What was probably like your biggest regret in your 30s?
My biggest regret in my 30s.
Yes.
Or you mean my 20s?
Let's have you reflect on your 20s instead. And we can look at your 30s in the future.
My biggest regret on my 20s, and I'll think about it, and this is going to kind of counteract what I'm saying, like what I've been preaching and what I've been teaching. So, but it was a different time and a different era. So for those that are curious, I graduated high school in 2001. I graduated during the internet boom hadn't started yet. It was starting. Google was becoming a thing. Amazon was slowly becoming a thing. Facebook didn't exist yet. Stuff like that. So I think of myself, I was already well interested in computers like during that time in that era. That's what I was messing around. We did a whole episode about how I wasn't really learning anything in school and I was just hacking away at a computer and learning things that way. My biggest regret is I actually didn't pay attention in high school. I barely graduated, for those full disclosure. I barely graduated. I graduated with a D average.
And that's always shocking for me to hear because you don't seem like someone that could care less about. You always seem like someone that's very logical and takes things seriously. To me, at least.
Yeah. Well, like I think education has very little, or your grades have very little to do with the education you receive in hindsight, in reality.
Yeah, that's true.
Grades are just a reflection of how much someone can sit down, buckle down, and do what they're told. That's what I genuinely believe. Doesn't make it, honestly, I will stand up for all of you that are like smart but have poor grades in school. You're not stupid. I'm telling you this right here and right now. You're not stupid. If anything, you're going to accomplish a lot.
That is very true because I had bad grades in school too.
You're going to accomplish a lot because you're going to learn how to divert those resources and your brain and your knowledge and power into something that you're really passionate about, and you will thrive and you will do well. But that was the thing. I kind of wish I paid attention a little bit more because if you look at the time frame, had I finished, had I gone through high school, got the good grades, went to the good college and kind of stuff like that, I would have interned at a Google. I would have interned at an Amazon or a Facebook or a MySpace or one of those kind of things, and my career probably would have been set. Except I was young and dumb and kind of did the stupid thing and not pay attention. You know, I was too busy like focused on the other things I was passionate about. And this is why I say you will do well, because you will take those things you are passionate about and you will take that intelligence of things you are passionate about and you will turn them into something you are wanting to do. I'm going to block this message.
Sorry.
Do not do that in this chat, please. Okay. So the that was what I was kind of going on about, where I'm like, I should have probably paid attention a little bit more because I feel like my career in life would have been a lot more set, you know. And in turn, I would have probably been able to do a lot of things. I probably would have been able to like live in San Francisco for a while and work at one of these places and do all these cool things.
Right.
And I think that's my biggest regret. I think that's my biggest regret in terms of career and like life, career wise, and finances and everything. I feel like I would have been much more set had I paid attention and actually done what I was supposed to, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, different time, different era. Now the internet gives a whole multitude of opportunities for people of all magnitudes of education and, experience and background. That wasn't the case back then.
I think if you think about it, we can look at Twitch even like that. Like for us growing up, like even though we're like 8 years apart, I don't think any of us could have imagined that like playing games for, in front of an audience could be a career path, right?
A thing.
Until like it, we saw it. We lived it.
And it's kind of weird too, because I think about this too, because not only has the internet created careers for a bunch of people, it's also hampered some of the careers of some people. Because like if you think about it, I was talking to Pal about this auto mechanics. We bring up the auto mechanic thing. How many times where it's kind of like, do I really need to go to the mechanic? And then you go look up YouTube how to like change your air filter, and you find out it's a 5-minute job that doesn't even really get you dirty. You know, you go buy your air filter for $15 at AutoZone, and then you take down your glove compartment and slap it in there, like your cabin filter or your air filter is literally a little plastic box under your hood. You flip the clips, swap the thing, and the auto mechanic will charge you $100 or $80 labor to do that.
You're seeing it now with people that are like renovating their homes.
I do that a lot now too. Like
you're seeing just people that are like, yeah, I'm going to do it myself. I don't feel confident enough to do it myself, so I'm still going to hire somebody. But you're seeing that people are able to kind of just figure things out on their own because information is so easily accessible now.
I've been learning I've been reading a couple of videos on how to like mount the TV. Like mount my mom wants to mount the TV on the wall. But I don't just want to like mount the TV, which you can mount the TV. You find the studs, drill it, and then you put the thing in, right? But like I don't want the power cord dripping down the white wall and everything. I want to run the cord behind the wall, and I want to like splice the electric so I can have an outlet at the top, and plug it in.
Yeah.
That part I'm a little more leery of, but like it's not that complicated. Like you just pay attention to colors and make sure you turn the breaker off and you can't hurt yourself. Hannah's so frightened of this thing, and he's outside.
Because he's like going like this right now. Like he's like waving to me. Like,
for those that are just tuning in right now, Hannah has an iguana in her window.
And he's like showing off his tongue. He's like, boom, boom, boom.
Oh.
No, sir, I'm not interested.
He's flirting now.
Nobody's home.
Iguana, I'm married.
He's like chilling. I don't even know if you could see it properly. Probably.
No, it's all bright, but I see him. Just
bright.
let him chill. Let him do his thing. He's not breaking in. He's not breaking in.
I just hear it. Like, that's the thing. I have a fan lizard. Yeah, he's just hanging out.
He's just hanging out. But so like no one would have thought the internet would have changed the world the way it did. Well, I take that back. The smart one is Steve Jobs knew what was going to happen with the internet, and he took advantage of it.
Oh, for sure. I have actually one question for you. This one kind of popped up in my head about your 20s experience versus like now. But I really want to talk about like Erik dating life in his 20s versus now. Like you've been with Pal for like some years now. Like how has your mindset with dating and relationships changed as like a kid in his 20s? Versus like, being close to your 40s now.
The thing about like, and people will lie about, and the internet makes this a thing too, where like the internet makes it look like, oh, Don, like you're like this master of all women when you're young and in your 20s and you have cat and like all this kind of thing. Like they make it look like very few people in the world have that confidence. And if they do, it's a skill they developed. And this, I think, is good advice for someone like, you have to understand, like, I was an awkward guy growing up, and that had a lot to do with my weight and all that kind of stuff. So my 20s were rough in terms of confidence and things of that sort because of my weight. And I didn't date the most, how do I put this nicely?
There's probably no nice way to put because I think I know what you're going to say.
I didn't date the people that were the best fit for me.
Okay.
I dated the people that presented the opportunity.
So, like, if you knew somebody was interested, like, you felt like, let me just kind of take this opportunity because I don't know if
Right.
it's going to come
My
around
options
again.
were scarce because, like, again, it was a
Right.
confidence thing about my side. Had the dad bod movement taken place way back then in my 20s, like, you know, we're talking 2010, I would have been
Uh-huh.
swimming, you know. You know, it would have been a whole thing.
Mhm.
I had a lot of fun. I will say that. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of friends that were, like, I had a lot of female friends.
Mhm.
And, you know, a lot of platonic relationships, and it was fun. And, you know, they play wingman for you or wing girl for you and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff, and they help you interact and they help you learn how to
Mhm.
interact and all that kind of stuff. But like I didn't pick the most suitable candidates, you know. And that's one of those things I had to learn, like, now, where it's like you have to pick a person that really kind of like understands you and works with you and has the patience with you and learns the kind of person that you are. And then you learn
Mhm.
about a compromise. Like, that's one of the biggest things I had to learn too, is like compromises. Like, Pal has had me do things that I wouldn't have done, you know, in my 20s.
Mhm.
You know, and
You
it's
got
kind
a soft spot, like,
yeah.
more since being
Yeah,
with
you have to
her.
be like, okay, we'll give it a shot, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like these damn ducks, I didn't want to do the damn ducks in the lake. I was like, I don't want to wait there. I don't want to do it's cold, blah blah. But no, you do things, you know, to make someone else happy. You
Yeah.
know, it's not a sacrifice, but it is a compromise, and you have to realize, like, hey, because
It's a
in turn,
dance. It's
it's a
all it
dance.
is. It's a
Yeah, it's
dance.
a dance, and then you learn, like, okay, like, you want your girlfriend to treat you right and do the things you want her to do for you, then you have to reciprocate it. It's like one of those things where you
Mhm.
have to do one of the things. It's funny enough that we're having this conversation because it wasn't an argument or anything, but um Pal, we constantly dance around the topic of, like, Pal's a little bit younger than me. She wants to go to one of those big clubs, like in like
Like the
Vegas, or like there's one in LA that we
like
saw
one of
that's
those.
massive.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like a big thing. She wants to do that whole thing. Whereas, like, I honestly, like, and this is probably a self thing where I'm kind of like having this issue where it's like I feel like I'm too old to be in those places. You know what I mean?
I can understand what you're saying. Because, like,
Right.
I feel like I'm too old. I'm only 30, but,
Right.
like, I feel like mentally, like, social, like, I just feel like I don't know if, like, I would even want to, because I don't know what it would serve me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's not like I get much from it.
A guy my age in his late 30s should be like getting his drinks at bars, you know, like
Yeah.
bars and stuff like that. I shouldn't be in
Yeah.
like nightclubs doing bottle service and stuff like that. You
Mhm.
know, even if I had the cash and can afford it and looked like I
Mhm.
could be there at my age, like, I probably still wouldn't do it. But
Mhm.
I did have like these weird like flashbacks because we were in downtown and there was this strip where we get pizza. There's a pizza place, but then on this strip there's like nightclubs and all this stuff, and then there's lofts that sit above these clubs, like loft
Mhm.
apartments and all this stuff. And I thought about stuff. I was like, had I been here when I was in my early 20s, early to mid 20s, I would have been having the time of my life.
Yeah.
You know.
Mhm.
And it's like, maybe it's a thing, like, I kind of like, that's probably one of those things I hanker on about youth. It makes me miss youth a little bit, is because, like, I didn't do that whole experience. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I made it here. I made it to LA, and I've lived here for, you know, almost, I've lived here for 7 years, you know, and I made it. I did it here, you know,
Mhm.
and it's fun. I've had a lot of fun here, and I had some ups and downs,
Mhm.
but, like, I made it here, you know, but, like, had I done it
Mhm.
when I was super young like that, it probably would have been a blast,
Mhm.
you know. It would have been a blast. And but, like, the whole dating thing, yeah, there was just people, like, I made decisions and I dated people that just weren't the best fit for me because I felt
Mhm.
like that was the my opportunities were scarce, so I might as well take the ones I get, which I
Right.
probably wasn't paying attention to, because, again, this is the confidence thing. I wasn't paying
Mhm.
attention because I used to go to a dance club, like, that did 80s nights.
Mhm.
And it was a lot of
That's
fun.
very you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the thing we would do. We would go to this club after work and they'd play 80 songs and indie songs and all that stuff. We're
Mhm.
talking like Mr. Brightside, Killer's Mr. Brightside in 2002 or whatever, when the song launched.
Mhm.
And, you know, you're drunk on a dance floor with beautiful people.
Yeah.
That's that was the, and I think about it because, like, I had a lot of fun doing that. I didn't completely not do it, but I had a lot of fun. And there was, like, girls would flirt because I used to have a big afro, guys. I had this big, massive, like,
I need to see pictures of your big afro.
I don't have any good pictures of it. All I have is an old driver's license, and it just looks awful. But
It's
like,
okay. I need to see it.
I had
Regardless, I have to.
like, this thing was huge, right? I had a big afro, and like, beautiful girls would come and like poof their hands on my afro and all that kind of stuff, you know? And like, I never took now I'm not, taking advantage, but I never took the opportunity to engage in conversation and all that kind of stuff. Because let's be real, Hannah will attest to this. If a girl's willing to walk up to you and play with your afro and be that close to you, they'd probably be interested in talking to you to some extent.
I would think so.
Yeah. So like, those are opportunities I didn't take when I was younger.
I will say I do agree with you with the sense of, because you're kind of alluding to the fact that like your confidence, you felt like your self-worth was like so low that you couldn't
Oh, it was
muster
horribly
up.
low. Yeah.
And so that's how mine was in my 20s.
Right.
And so like the relationship that I had basically been in before Dustin, there were red flags that I should have, like, I knew even going into it. I'm like, I am accepting things that I wouldn't normally accept. I am, compromising for things that like I wouldn't necessarily compromise for. But I'm doing it because, like, no guy is going to give me like, this was the first one that really gave me attention, like, in my 20s.
Right.
So I'm like, might as well, like, grab it.
And isn't it interesting how, like, confidence just breaks everything? Because you will, like, you look at yourself, like, I look at pictures that you sent me when you were young, like, you're a beautiful girl. You're beautiful now.
I watch old Twitch clips and I'm like, where did I get off complaining about how I looked? Like, because now I'm like, I am so chunky and COVID did a number on me. Like,
right, but like
I look at her and I'm like, she had no reason to feel as insecure as she did. Like, and so like I mourn that. Like I wish I would have spent more time in my 20s, like just loving like the body I was in and like
and having a good time and embracing
and just
the
enjoying
stuff
my
you do in your
20s. Like but I was too like I was so uptight. Like 20s were a year of just me being uptight.
Yeah, you think about like all this, like you think about these like weird like things. You ever think about like that one person, like someone came and asked you to dance or whatever, and then you said no, and then you ever think about like what would have happened? Oh
my gosh, I think about this one guy that it was a really weird situation, but like before I was with like my ex-boyfriend, like there was another guy that was showing interest.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm like, if they both ask me out, I knew myself well enough to know that I would just pick one to like go out with. I didn't want to do this like date hopping. But I always think I'm like, what would have happened like with that if I would have went with that guy? You know what I mean? Now, granted, I'm glad the way everything turned out because like I love my husband. Like I'm just so grateful.
I'm fully satisfied with the relationship I'm in. Like it's nothing but against you wonder, my current like, partner. Yeah.
Right. Like you wonder like the decisions you've made in your life, like how would have life turned out differently? Like if I didn't go this route or went to that school or did better in school or whatever the case is. So but I try not to harp on it too long because I'm like, you can't change anything anyway. I can't go back and suddenly make straight A's in high school.
Right. And then you go look up like old hype people that you had to think for in high school and you find out they're like married and like living in a trailer park somewhere.
I think that's like one of like the weirdest things for me is like I'll randomly like remember a random like person from high school and I'll look them up and be like, wow, they're a lawyer now. Or like, oh man, they have 4 kids now. They used to hate kids. Like, or this person that I never thought would want to be a mom is like living like the stay-at-home mom life and loving every second of it. Like
crazy, huh?
And it's interesting because like my mind is still set on high school people as being the same people as they were back in the day.
Yeah.
So if you told me like, oh, Sally Smith got married, I would still think of Sally Smith as that girl that was like smoking weed under the bleachers and like, like you still have like those
in the backseat of the limo on prom night type of deal, and you're like, that girl was wild.
But then like you look and people have changed and then you realize, you know what, I've changed too. I'm not the same Hannah as I was when I was 17 or 16.
It's like weird how I think about like the person I've changed. I still hold on to like all the same ideals and beliefs and everything I had. I think I'm just more open to other people's like opinions of things now. And like I've learned how to just like make it part of conversation, and that's kind of like how I treat life now.
I think you got better after you started to care for yourself more.
Right.
I think when you had stopped like the smoking and like the excess drinking and like you started to like heal your physical body, I think you became more like at peace with
Right. I
with
think I did, like,
things.
I've matured. I've started to, like,
Yeah.
mature. And honestly, it's probably the only reason I probably didn't really mature like I should have and get to this point is because I had all these other vices that were keeping me immature.
Would you say that you were angry a lot?
Oh, pff. That's an
Like you were just
understatement.
holding on.
I hated the
Okay.
world. I hated the world. I hated every aspect of it.
Yeah.
And granted, I still have beef with a lot of things. I still have beef with
Mm-hmm.
like corporations. I still have beef with governments. I still have beef with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still more on this. I'm still on the side of the people and the
Mm-hmm.
people that make and shape us and all that. Because I'm on the side. I'm on your side. For those
Mm-hmm.
of you that like are angry at the world right now and on Twitter and expressing your opinions about things and you're angry, so I'm on your side because you have every right to be. Your anger is warranted. I just have like a different opinion on how people approach things now. But
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's important to be angry and to keep thinking and to keep progressing as a human being and being angry and questioning. It's always important to keep questioning because if you stop questioning, you stop evolving, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
dangerous road.
I think it depends on what you do with your anger.
Right.
Because I think if you sit in anger and there's no call to action,
Right.
then you'll create a very sad space to be in.
Right. You'll
Because
create
I
this
don't like
angry
being
void. You create this empty,
right.
angry void. Whereas if you're someone like, I want to change the world, I'm so angry, I want to go change the world, and you actually take the steps to go out there and do it,
Mm-hmm.
you will find more
It probably feels a little bit
satisfaction.
more like fulfilling and
Vindicated.
like
It's
yeah.
vindicated,
Like I'm doing what I can. Like even if I just feel like I'm a small speck in the world, like at least I'm contributing.
That's,
Like
I think, one of the most important
my
things, like,
part.
I want to say to people, like young people now, is like the people that go out there and they say, well, I don't do anything because it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand, a small speck is better than nothing. A small speck is literally
Mm-hmm.
more than nothing. So even if you are a small speck in the world doing your part, and
They
you
have
do
this
like local or local like fundraising and charity and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff and local, rallies and things like you're doing better than nothing.
There's this project that I'm working on at the moment that's like kind of like the phrase is like world changing women.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't necessarily mean like me as a person changing like the whole world. It's
Yeah.
me in my world,
Right.
whatever that looks like. It could like my small changing it
Mm-hmm.
or taking the steps or doing something that shifts the small world around me.
Yeah.
And I think that's better. I think that almost sounds a little bit more attainable because when we say things like, oh, change the world, that's kind of, those are big shoes to fill.
Right.
But if you say change your world, like, it's like, okay, that makes more sense to me.
Right. Most of the
So,
biggest, brightest ideas were just started because someone's like, this should be different. And then it starts
mhm.
small and they figure out a way to do it. And then it grows into this huge empire.
Mm.
Look at like Amazon. Now, Amazon has a lot of beef. And I have some beef with Amazon, the way they do things now. But it really was just a guy who was like, I should be able to get these books like to my house the next day. Like it's a simple idea.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know?
now it's like a massive empire.
It's a massive empire. Like cars should run on batteries. Why do we rely on fuel? But that's a whole different story altogether. Someone in the chat here, I want to acknowledge this question because it's actually a very good question here. Where'd it go?
The traveling one?
The traveling, yeah. So they asked, where would I travel? I see a destiny. Oh, here we go. Have any plans of traveling outside the U.S. and if so, where would you like to go? I have a bucket list. My bucket
Top
list.
3.
Huh? My
Top
top
3.
three? My top 3 are London,
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo, and I'd like to see Paris. Those are my 3. I'd like to see
Those are good
London. I'd
ones.
like to go to London to see the birthplace of punk rock and at least over there. They argue who came first, but like it's, it'd be cool to see all of that. London, the birthplace of, just really rock and roll and stuff in general, kind of like all of that, on the other side of the ocean there. So that would be cool to see. Tokyo, I want to see Tokyo because I'm fascinated with the idea of how like Japan. Your father mentioned it perfectly when we were having the conversation with him after your wedding. He talked about how Tokyo was like this weird country that's in this weird vibe of like trying to maintain the traditional values while trying to become this like technological like.
So it's like it's an interesting aesthetic.
Yeah, a
Like
consumer
it's
empire,
Yeah.
And then Paris is just beautiful. Like I would just love to see Paris in terms of beauty. I would also love to go to the Louvre and see, the Mona Lisa and all that kind of stuff.
Did you hear about the guy that tried to like, didn't he like throw a banana at it or something? Or he tried to do something with it. I can't remember.
Some people do stupid things and they probably try to put it on like TikTok. I'm gonna throw the banana.
Those are good places though.
What do you got?
I feel like it changes. I mean, I don't necessarily feel like I have a top 3, but like some things I definitely want to see. I want to go to New Zealand. That's always been like one of the places.
New Zealand's beautiful.
Because that's where most of the filming was done for Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings. I know. Listen, I just want to go around. Like, I was obsessed with that movie at like 10. So I would love to go there to just see everything. And then like I would like to go back to the Philippines. I want to take Dustin to the Philippines so he can meet my family.
Aw.
Last time I was there, get the real lumpia. Last time I was there, I was 10, so it's been like 20 years.
Not the Costco.
Not the Costco lumpia. And then I would probably just want to do like a historical like trip to like Israel or something like that. To see like cool. Where all like like where experts believe like the crucifixion was, or like where Jesus was. And I think like a history trip like that would be like really fascinating to me, because you can think of it in your head, but to actually see those places would be like really cool to me. So I would want to do that. And then Japan's up there, but I don't know where in Japan I would want to go. So I also have always wanted to go to the Vatican. I'm not Catholic anymore, but
I've always wanted to see the Vatican too.
Yeah. I'm not Catholic anymore, but like I love the look of like stained glass and like the architecture side of it. It's so pretty to me.
You're gonna trip because obviously I have beefs with religion and stuff like that. Yeah. But like old churches and stuff are some of my favorite.
I think the architecture is gorgeous. It's like I could look at a book with just like church architecture. With like the stained glass. One of my favorite things
about, if anything's my favorite thing about it, is the architecture of buildings and stuff. That's why one of the reasons I have such beef with like mega churches. I feel like mega churches like strip that culture and that tradition away from it, and it just turns it into a commercialized, thing. Here's another example of this. So like I was talking to, it was either my mom or Pal or one of it, but they're like, she was like, why do you like LA so much? Or why do you like, Chicago, or not Chicago, but like, why did you like Seattle or San Francisco so much? I was like, because there's a lot of old culture there. There's art galleries, there's old buildings, there's old places that are cool to hang out and see and do and things like that. The library is beautiful compared to most modern libraries. Because I love that, because you go to a modern city now, like I don't want to say a modern city, but like a developed city now. Let's say, for example, what's the one in Arizona? What's the biggest one in Arizona right now? Not Mesa. Phoenix. Like Phoenix, Arizona, right? Phoenix is becoming a developed like community. Their idea of culture, and this is a lot of these modern neighborhoods, is they slap up a mini mall, throw up your Target, throw up your Starbucks, throw up your movie multiplex, and throw up your Barnes and Noble, and there's your community culture. It's all consume, consume, consume. Whereas like here in like LA, there's free art galleries, there's free, the libraries, there's free resources to have a good time and get educated on stuff and stuff things like that. Whereas like I feel like that's stripped away a lot of times now, and I feel the same way about like these mega churches, because these mega churches, I feel, strip away that tradition and make it just another corporate entity in the world. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's a conversation you and I are gonna have to have like separately, because I'd like to give some type of perspective on it.
Right. Now I'm not talking about the philosophies and stuff that are taught there, because like I don't go to your church. I don't, go to church in general, but so I can't really give an opinion on that. Right. But I really do feel like there's a commercialized view of like the way people see churches now, because you can see the way they're designed.
So I mean, there's a lot I could actually say on this topic just because of everything that I've learned and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so, kind of like and I don't want to go too in depth into it. This is a conversation you and I can have separately.
Right.
But the thing is, I feel like mega churches a lot of the time, I don't know how to explain it. Like some of the mega churches that you think of that come to mind don't typically follow like what they're necessarily supposed to follow. And so they're kind of like do you know something that's like a poor representation of something?
Right, exactly.
Like so like if we're looking at a church like Joel Osteen's church out in Lakewood, or that is actually one of the worst examples of what a church, American church is.
Right. But it's also one of the largest. That's the counter.
It's one of the largest, and it's one of the worst because they don't even necessarily teach what Christians, like at the core fundamental belief structure is. Like it's a very prosperity. And so I can understand people look at it that way because that's usually the representation of like the Christian American church, because it's like so big, like so many people have chosen it and follow it. And so it's kind of been like this poor representation of
Someone
it.
just said in the chat here, someone mentioned in the chat, if it's possible to separate yourself from religion, would you be interested in visiting churches and temples for the art? Yeah, I fully intend to do it. Like me and Han just said, we would both love to see the Vatican, because the Vatican is literally one of the most beautiful places in the world. I would love to see it. I love seeing old churches. There's a lot of them here in LA, the old Catholic churches and stuff like that. The church where they filmed the My Chemical Romance video is not that far away from me.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, that's so
the
cool.
Helena one.
The Helena one?
Yeah, it's not that far away. It's in Koreatown. So like,
I would love to go to that one.
Yeah. So like, and I've noticed this too, because like Catholicism, like Catholic churches, they tend to modernize vintage architecture. Like there's this one that's in a neighborhood called Pasadena. Beautiful. They film a lot of movies there, right? It's an old building, right? Old church architecture and stuff, but they modernize the inside. They put new pews, they put the flat screen TVs and stuff in there, and they built an add-on to it to add more space. And so Buddhist temples I'm very big on too. I love Buddhist temples.
I've been to a Jewish temple before. That was very pretty.
Yeah.
I've been to a Greek Orthodox church, which was like stunning. I was just like,
yeah, no,
oh
it's
God.
church,
like, I have
church
one
architecture
here, like,
is fascinating to me. It's one of my favorite things, you know, and I love church architecture. That's why that's why I have such a beef with modern like church architecture, because it doesn't have any of that. It's just, you know, it looks like a mini mall. Most of them look like, I think you could kind of agree with me on that thing. They look like mini malls.
I think they can. Yeah,
they look like
for sure
mini
they
malls.
can.
You know, it's not like the classic pews and the towers and stuff like that. You know, it's like it looks like the mall down the street. You know, you'd be almost hard to tell. Oh, what is that? You know, do they have a bathroom? And then like you pull, you know, like you'll be almost hard to tell.
I would think like my question would be like, do places of worship, no matter what they are, whether it's a Christian denomination, do they have to look a certain way in order to have some type of spiritual worth to them? Because you can find a church that doesn't have the fancy architecture. It could be like this small little hole in the wall where people gather.
Yeah, that's the thing,
you know,
too, where it's like,
and so, or it could also be, I mean, I have beef with like the Lakewood church because it was basically like a whole auditorium. I think they bought a whole.
Oh, that's one of them. Like in LA, the Forum was a church for a while, I think. Like the actual Forum where the Lakers played.
Oh, was it?
For decades was it turned into a church for a while, and now it was bought back.
That actually, what's interesting, that documentary I told you to take a look at,
I
like they
watched some
talk
of it,
about, towards the end they talk about a lot of these like mega people out there, and they criticize them pretty harshly. So
it's one of those things. We'll veer off this specific answer to the question here, but like it's one of those things where it's like, you know, that may not be the intent. They obviously may have their practices and teach what they're going to teach and all that stuff, but I feel like is almost like it's weird. It's, again, I'll hanker back to it, and I may not be correct on this. This is just a viewpoint I have when I look at it, but like it looks like they want to. It's almost that whole like we're gonna go out with the old. People aren't into that anymore. We want people back to the church, so we're gonna modernize it. You know what I mean? And we're gonna put, you know, make it look like a fancy mall and have like surround system and all that stuff, and like very clean and very
Mm-hmm.
neutral and pure looking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like it's a way to get people back. It's like a way to get younger people into it. It almost seems like.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
may be right.
interesting
I
because
may be wrong.
I've been to different churches. Like, my church is a bigger church.
Yeah.
My coworker, she invited me to her church, and Dustin and I went. It's like a small, like, apostolic type of church where, like, literally when I tell you it's not very big, but everyone's packed like sardines, like just
Yeah.
like running up, singing, and um. So I've been to different types. I think, like, I think with any kind of like church community, I think like, and I believe this, it's gonna be where you feel like you're going to
Right.
grow the most.
And that's the thing
And
you were talking
so,
about. Like, is it in a basement somewhere? Does that
yeah,
diminish? And no, it doesn't.
yeah,
Whatever helps you find the answers you are looking
mm-hmm,
for, whether it be in religion or, science, or wherever helps you
mm-hmm,
find the answers you're looking for, follow it and, work with it and see what it does
mm-hmm,
for you, But like, that's
yeah,
just a thing, it's the basis of the art. We were talking
mm-hmm,
about the
right,
architecture. Like,
right,
I have a disagreement with how they handle the architecture now,
right, right.
you know?
And that's the thing. Like, I really love like pretty, like, my old church that I grew up in,
Hmm.
the Catholic church I grew up in, gorgeous, like
I'll take you to some of the
stunning.
ones out here.
Um,
They're beautiful.
and it's actually the first Catholic church in Broward County,
Yeah.
and it's gorgeous. And like, I used to think like, oh, I'm gonna get married there one day, but then I just ended up changing denominations. Like,
Right.
I'm not Catholic anymore. So, but I still can appreciate it. Like, and so
Yeah.
Vatican's like one of the top. My number one, honestly, is Notre Dame. If
Yeah.
I could,
That's
because The
badass.
Hunchback of Notre Dame is my favorite movie of all time. I have like such a thing with Notre Dame. Like, I want nothing more than to see it. When it caught on fire, I was so sad. Like,
Did you
I
hear
think they were
about
able to
how
preserve
well,
most
did you
of the
hear
stuff
about
though.
how Ubisoft sent like 3D models and all that stuff because they
Did
did
they?
Notre Dame in one of the games.
Unity. It was
It's
one of like the crappy games.
Yeah,
Like
but they did
the
like Notre Dame. They did a full scale because Ubisoft went and took pictures
mm,
of the whole church, like the up and down,
mm,
every nook and cranny, and they built this 3D model of the church. I guess they
mm.
sent it back or something to them to help them restore it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, something like that. And then Ubisoft gave away the game that it was in for free during that event. That was tragic.
Uh,
Even for someone like me who's not very religious, like watching
mm.
a building like that fall
Yeah, like
is tragic.
it's because like it's history in the sense of like that building stood like for so long. Like,
It's a
think of all the
symbol.
history.
It's a
It's a
symbol. I
symbol of
felt
the
the same way.
city.
Like I didn't really like what the World Trade Center stood for in terms of
Mm,
corporatism and all that kind of stuff.
mm,
But in terms of the people of New York City,
mm,
I know that building is important to them. That is a symbol of New York. Was a symbol of
right.
New York City. You
My
know.
dad was saying that there's a small theater here. It's called like the Gateway Theater. I
Hmm.
think it was one of the first movie theaters in Fort
Right.
Lauderdale, and it's kind of known for like the film festivals. Like,
Hmm.
they show kind of like those like cult movies where like it doesn't have like a big
Nice.
box office opening, but like
Yeah.
they'll bring Rocky Horror Picture Show back. Like they do those
Hmm.
runs of like old classics, and so my dad told me, he's like, I think they're talking about tearing it down.
Yeah,
And
and it's sad.
I was like, can't we like fight for it? Like, that's a piece of like Fort Lauderdale history.
Right.
Like, and he's like, I think they're talking about like remodeling it or like fixing it up, but they don't know if they're going to be able to do that. And I'm like, that's really sad because like, those like certain pictures of cities, like
Hmm.
you said, it's the World Trade Center, or like maybe there's something, the Hollywood sign,
Right.
like there are staples in different cities. And so like, I can't imagine that not
It's
being there.
happening. It's happening a lot here in Hollywood. They're tearing down a lot of the old buildings and stuff like that. One example is the Viper Room, which is famous for where River Phoenix died.
Hmm.
If you don't know who River Phoenix is, he was a young actor at the time. He's actually the brother of Joaquin Phoenix, who played the Joker and all that stuff recently.
Oh.
So River Phoenix passed away and died in front of the Viper Room. They're trying to
Hmm.
they're going to tear down that whole block and put up like
Dang.
a complex, a multi
Mm,
apartment corporate complex. It's happening a lot in
mm,
Hollywood. They're trying to turn Hollywood into Manhattan. and strip it of all that culture and all that cool stuff. The same thing happened to Amoeba, the record store here.
Mm-hmm.
They lost their building lease because they were going to strip it and build a high rise.
I'm so sick of the high rises. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, that is something like I am 100% like against, because we're seeing them all over the place. Like, and they're kind of kicking out like old school Fort Lauderdale to create like these little art walks and like downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's very like hipster.
Yeah.
And it bothers me because I'm like, you can't even get the people that are locals to live in these places because they're too much anyway.
That's the problem. I don't have a problem with the high rises building because we need housing. I don't have a problem.
Yeah, we need housing for sure.
But they're building buildings that people can't afford to live in, and that's
like
the
luxury
problem.
condos where like the middle class or the working class cannot.
Someone brought the perfect example. Someone said the perfect statement of this before we wind down here. Someone said this perfect statement. The people in the leasing office don't even make the 3 times the rent. You know, and it's like, well, damn, like what the hell, you know? But that part bothers me. They're trying to turn Hollywood into like a Manhattan and strip it of all its joy. And then downtown LA is slowly kind of becoming a Brooklyn where it's kind of gritty and it's becoming hipster, but it's a little gritty, you know, like, you know, God help it if they tear down that Radioactive. I will be sad. That is one of my favorite. That's in my top 3 record stores I've ever been to.
I don't think they will, because it has such now I guess unless whoever is landlord of that strip.
That's what happened to Amoeba. Amoeba is our, you know, cornerstone music store here in LA. Like that's the one, right? And they lost the lease they were in, and they moved to a separate building. And the building was redone. Like they moved everything to a new building, and they have a new storefront now and everything. And it's fine. It was good to be back. It was good to see them back. I spent $100 some odd when they opened again. Just to keep
they had one when
afloat.
I was growing up. It was called Peaches. And it was like
You've told me about Peaches.
Peaches, and then they knocked it down to make a Hustler Hollywood. So now you just see like titties like on the corner of like
Speaking of
Sunrise.
Records, I did go get the Taylor Swift vinyl.
You did. You showed me the picture.
And it sounds great. It sounds great on vinyl. It was a great pressing. I was listening to it with some headphones. It sounds great.
I was gonna listen to it later. Like that's usually my clean the house record. Like I'll put that on.
I'm glad you're enjoying the record player. I really am.
I am. It's really nice. It like fills the room out with like I said, one of the reasons I love it is because it forces me to slow down and listen to music
and enjoy.
If I wanted to go and repeat the song, I have to like walk over, which I won't. Like now I sit and listen to the whole
You're
record.
scared to pick it up and like try and do it.
Yeah, I don't want to mess it up, dude. Like
go get yourself a Goodwill record or something cheap, right? And then practice on that until you get the hang of doing it. And then you'll eventually get the hang of it. So before we wind down, did you have anything else you wanted to ask me?
I think that's pretty much it.
Really?
I think. But I want to do a future episode with you of like lessons you learned in your 30s.
We're almost there.
Ready to turn 4. Yeah.
We're almost there. We're about.
Your birthday is. When is it again?
We are a year and a month away.
Yeah. So we'll come back. This will be another episode.
We'll come back. But I know this is a good one. We'll handle some administrative stuff here before we go away. Hannah, you're going to be taking a little bit of a break.
Yes, I'm probably going to be taking a month off. Burnout is a big thing. It's real, and I just need to breathe.
And one of the things we told ourselves when we started this project is that we were not going to burn ourselves out. And if we got to the point where we were burning out, we were going to take a break.
Yeah. And it's not even necessarily the podcast is burning me out. It's like things that are going around are like causing burnout. It's life. So
life is burning Hannah out a little bit. She needs a recharge and a breather. So I hope you do a bunch of fun stuff while you're away. I will work out the logistics of the shows here. You'll see more Good Friends, Good Games. That's not going anywhere. We'll probably have a couple guests on this one. If we do work it out, we'll have some guests on this one, and we'll get another. But you know, it'll be about 4 weeks for the foreseeable future here before you see Hannah and I together again. But she's going to take a break, and she deserves a break. She's been through a lot. She can relax and breathe easy. You'll still see little things. We're going to probably film a couple clips here and there and do some little content-y things. But as far as, podcasts and stuff like that, I think Hannah and I will probably do some fun stuff. We'll get on a Discord and play a game together or something.
That'll actually be a lot of fun. We got to just pick a game.
And relax and do fun stuff. So we'll be back, soon enough. We'll keep you updated. If you want, you can do ! Did I make it social media? It's social media, right? Exclamation point social media. You can follow the good people Twitter and TikTok and Instagram and all that good stuff. I got to fix that thing. It looks nasty. I switched from the Inkbot or whatever it is over to the Stream Elements. So I guess the formatting is just weird. I will fix that, guys. If you need it, it's Good People Media Group on Twitch. And then if you need Instagram or whatever, you need this one. I will copy and pasta it here. He's not going to get you, Hannah.
I'm just watching him. That's all I'm doing. Because he's looking right at me.
Oh, God. Enter. You can use that one for Twitter, Instagram, and your other socials.
He's just so close. I'm just admiring him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you.
What
are you going to do when we get off of this? What are you going to do?
I'm probably going to walk up closer to it so I can get a better look at him. But other than that, he can just chill there.
He can just chill there. He hasn't left.
He hasn't moved. He's like literally just watching me.
Maybe you ever think about this? Maybe you're annoying him. Like
he's like, why are you in my house?
Yeah, like you're just he's probably just trying to take a nap or whatever, and he hears you yammering on about like Taylor Swift. And he's like, girl, I'm trying to sleep.
He keeps doing this thing because he's trying to like climb up on the screen of the window, so it makes it look like he's waving at me.
He's trying to enjoy his Saturday.
I know. Well, it's hot out there, so he's enjoying it.
What is it? Is it 90 over there right now?
Oh, I don't know, but it's like Satan's butt crack hot.
Satan's butt crack hot, huh? Satan's swamp ass over there. Satan's swamp ass. Let me see what it is. Today here.
It's 90 degrees with the humidity at 65%. So 92 degrees right now.
Let's see. It is 85 right now, so it's not that hot today. And I think we're at the peak of the day. The peak of the day is 87, so.
All right, it's like 1 over there, isn't it?
It is 103. So we did make time. We made time. You did a good job. Someone said 71. I'm so jealous of Chibi. It's 71.
I'm jealous. I would love for it to be 71.
75 is my peak, like. That's my ideal.
I love 72. I love someone at 72.
Okay, 72 is a little cold for me. 75 is about right. My peak is 77. Like anything more than like when I start hitting 80, I'm kind of like starting to get uncomfortable. 75 to 77 is my ideal temperature. Oh, Pacific Northwest. Nice. You're up in that region. I thought about Seattle a lot. I can't afford to live there now, but I thought about Seattle a lot. I feel like Seattle's I would fit in there. Nice. PAX was great when I went to PAX West. It looked beautiful. It was fun. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to wind down out of here. See you next week for Good Friends, Good Games. And this has been the Good People with Erik and Hannah. And I'm Erik.
I'm Hannah.
And we're going to go ahead and we're going to sign off out of here. Thanks again for hanging out. And we will talk to you guys again soon.
Have a good one, guys.